In this video, I'm going to reveal to you the 2026 BIM Game Plan. I will show you the industry skill set that you need to learn that you would only ever learn if you had worked in the industry. And this is going to allow you to get into BIM coordination and BIM management. The reason that I'm even making this video is because right now there is a supply and demand discrepancy in the market. The people that can orient themselves with BIM coordination and BIM management over the next few years are the ones that can take advantage of this growth cycle and grow with the industry. And the people that take more of a reactive approach and learn this stuff later are going to miss out on this growth opportunity which is currently happening. And so if you want to grow rapidly in your career, you want to shift into BIM coordination and BIM management, get paid way more and also take more responsibility and become a leader at something that you are super passionate about, this video is going to be perfect for you. There's 4 things that you need to understand and I'll show them to you right now. There's 4 pillars. The first pillar is understanding the BIM coordination and BIM management workflows. Everyone thinks that learning BIM coordination is super simple. You just learn a few coordination programs. But that is actually the top of the iceberg. Underneath the water, 90% of the work is there that you never have been it's never been revealed to you because you've never actually seen it happen. And so this video is going to reveal to you the 90% of the skills that you've never actually even knew you needed to know in order to become a BIM coordinator and a BIM manager. This is why most people get rejected in the application stage or during the interview, right? After I teach you all of the skills, then I will actually integrate this with the whole project management aspect of things and show you how we can actually integrate BIM coordination and BIM management with project management, why it's so important for you to have skills of both of these things, because it's going to allow you to actually coordinate the virtual construction process of multi-million-dollar projects, right? After that, it doesn't matter if you know any of that stuff. If you don't actually know how to communicate, take responsibility, and lead the whole virtual construction process, how are you going to be able to lead a meeting and assign clashes and then tell people to resolve things and move towards the complete model, right? Impossible. And so you need to understand how that happens as well and the most effective strategies for communication and leadership. After that, the last thing that I'll do is show you how to actually position yourself and package yourself in a very nice way that will make the market love you and actually want to hire you for these roles. Because if you market yourself in an incorrect way, but you have all these skills, the market is never going to know how valuable you are. But if you don't have any of the skills and you try to market yourself in a very nice way, the market is still not going to care because you have nothing to actually provide. And so the trick is to get the skill set, but market it in a very strategic way that I'm about to reveal to you at the end of the video, which will actually make so much sense and you will understand very clearly why some people can so easily within 1 week to 2 weeks get a job, but then some people take 4, 5, 6 months and some people never actually achieve it and stay stagnant for 10 to 20 years in their careers, right? And so before we actually get into that, let me walk you through, right? I've coordinated like over $750 million worth of projects over the last 12 months in my career alone as a BIM manager. All of these pillars that I've mentioned over here and everything that I'm revealing in this whole board is actually based on this $700 million worth of projects. When I say there's 4 pillars, I really mean it. There's nothing less, because if you do 3 pillars, you're not going to be able to get the job. And if you stack more on top of this, you're just wasting your time. And so you need to understand what you need to know to the correct dose, take action so that you can quickly get into the industry. And so everything is practical based on the $700 million worth of projects that I've worked on in the last 12 months. I've coordinated hospitals, prisons, aged care. I deal with mostly commercial projects, right? And before we even get into anything, I want you to watch this 10-second video.
Just in the past 2 months, I've gone from not being very confident and knowing this stuff to now I'm in the seat to run the VDC department for a $3 billion general contractor.
This is actually Wade, one of my clients. I want you to remember him because in a few minutes, I will show you exactly what he can do that you currently can't. Everything inside this video, this board, is what I've taught him step by step, which allowed him to actually start to coordinate in a $3 billion company as a VDC manager, right? And so before any of that, let's actually go into this, right? This video is for you if you check one of these boxes. If you feel like your passion has faded into autopilot, you might not hate it, but you just might not feel anything about your current job. I work with so many architects, I speak to so many engineers that feel like they've been doing the same thing over and over again, and their career progression is very linear. They see exactly when they would get pay rises and the level of responsibility which they get, and they're not super happy with it. They want to accelerate, take more responsibility, and shift into something because in the back of their mind, they always knew that they would be in a management position by now, but they just simply aren't, right? And so you feel like you have an invisible ceiling because of that. For the last 3 to 5 years, you feel like you've been doing the same task, the same deadlines, you're rinsing and repeating the exact same things. You feel behind for your age. Like I said before, you felt like you were meant to be at a management stage by now. You have no intellectual stimulation. You feel like you're not solving things that make you passionate to go to work every single day, that actually makes your mind turn, makes you feel like you're playing chess rather than makes you feel like you're doing something very tedious and monotonous, right? Switching feels like starting from zero. You've done all this. You feel like architecture, engineering, you've done it. This is the foundation that you have, and you don't know where else to go. Because if you go somewhere else, you're starting from zero. So the best thing for you to actually do is take advantage of the BIM coordination and BIM management side of things and actually pivot. Use your foundation as a very strong foundation from which you can build this big building on. Without the foundation, you can't build it. I've seen so many architects and engineers be able to make this transition successfully because architecture and engineering aligns very nicely with BIM coordination and BIM management. You just have to make sure that you secure your foundation before building on top of it, right? And you want more freedom, right? You don't want to go to work every single day. You don't want to see the same thing happen every single day. You want more leverage in your career. You want to be able to work virtually. And these things only happen when you get into an industry where this sort of thing is normal. Being able to work virtually. I haven't gone to the office in ages. I always work virtually and I travel a lot. And so being able to get into that sort of life setup along with your career is so important to a lot of the people that I work with, and was so important for me as well, because if you're working for most of your day and you're passionate and you're ambitious, then you should be able to dictate and control where you're actually working through. And so gaining the leverage, showing that you have the skill, and being able to position yourself into a vehicle which allows you to do that and allows you to get freedom is the most important thing that you can do for your career and for your happiness as well, right? I'm telling you, BIM can actually solve all these problems. But like anything, there's a proper way to actually make the transition smooth. Or else what's going to happen is you will just be adding a bunch of stress and wasted time on top of the already draining life that you might have. And this video intends to solve this problem for you. I'm not just trying to tell you that you might be feeling this and there's no way out. There is a way out, and I've helped so many people do it, and I've done it myself, right? So here's my full ask. Full screen. Phone in the other room, give me an hour of real attention, because these 4 pillars can hand you back 10, 20 years of your career. And I'm not exaggerating this. I will back this up with data in the next few years. And this is based on my whole career, everything that I've learned, right? Let's get into pillar 1. But in order for you to even understand pillar 1, you need to understand what's happening to the market right now. Because I started off the video saying that the industry is changing. But what do I really mean by this? Because if you don't understand the landscape of the industry and what's actually happening right now, you're not going to be able to really understand why it's effective to do these pillars in the sequential step that I'm about to explain it to you in, right? The secret, what's happening right now in the industry. I want you to consider, this is an analogy, right? But I want you to consider a beam system that is supporting a building, right? Let's take a building, right? Every building stands because loads have somewhere to go. Every member carries a load or is decorative. So if we have, let me just draw on my screen over here. We have a building which sits on top of here, right? And we have a building which sits on top of here. In this first scenario, you can see the building's weight distribution goes down through here, and then it sits on this over here with these small pillars, the foundation, and it's distributing the load downwards through these beams, right? You can see we have the exact same thing here, but we might have some decorative beams over here right next to the top just to make it look good. And maybe on the facade, we might have some beams over here which don't actually carry load but make the building look better. What happens when we have a design constraint, or not a design constraint? What happens when we have a financial constraint? When the budget tightens, what happens is the decorative members, they get value engineered out. Nobody hates them, they're just not needed. And so what happens is we'll say, okay, buy, we'll get rid of this. We actually just need this member, and this member, because without it, we can't do anything. Right? We can't have the building even stand if we don't have that. And we might even change one of the members so that we have this member, and we might think about it in a new way with a horizontal member like this, and we might get rid of this because this might be cheaper to install based on some engineering calculation compared to this. And so I really want you to think about this in terms of what sort of member are you in your career right now, right? Are you a decorative element, or are you a structural element that is really needed? And don't think about it in terms of like architecture versus engineering versus BIM management. Think about, because you can have the title of anything. You can have the title of architect, but if you're just doing door schedules and you're doing Revit modeling and you're doing something which is highly technical but can be replaced and changed with AI, then it's very easy for you to sort of phase out of this career in the long run because you don't feel because they don't feel the value that you once offered. because it goes down, right? And so your career is the member, and the structure is called the construction industry. The question is never, am I working hard? Because all of these elements served a purpose at some point. A decorative beam can be beautifully detailed. The question is, am I in the load path? So what I'm trying to do is get you onto the load path. BIM coordination and BIM management, not every BIM coordinator, BIM manager is equal. You have to be the type of person that has a specific skill set, the 4 pillars that I'm about to show you in this video, and only these 4 pillars are actually going to give you the job security that you want. Only these 4 pillars is going to give you the freedom that you want. And only these 4 pillars is going to give you the confidence to be able to apply anywhere and get any responsibility in any job that you want, right? Here's the thing that most people miss. Structures get redesigned. The industry is getting redesigned right now because of BIM and AI. The load path is moving. Drafting used to be load bearing. It's now becoming more decorative. Recently, there is a new Claude model called Fable, right? Fabble. You can look into it. There are videos right now of you being able to vibe code Revit modeling. So you can actually sit there, connect Claude into Revit, and you can say, hey, can we build the wall? Can we put duct here? Can we do this? Can we do that? And you will see it build automatically on Revit. These are things that we never thought we could have. And so something that took someone 3-4 days to do with multiple people can now be done with one guy that understands AI workflows really well. And so what's happening is the pool of your value is shrinking. Only the people that understand Revit and understand BIM, but can also integrate it with AI, are the people that are going to be super safe. I'm not saying drafting is going anywhere. I'm not saying BIM modeling will go anywhere, but I'm saying the barrier to entry will be way higher. You need to understand how to use AI tools as well as BIM modeling, right? And those types of people are the ones that are going to be very secure BIM modelers, and then all the other people will sort of shrink, and we'll get to a very, very niche amount of BIM modelers, a very small amount of BIM modelers, rather than having all the BIM modelers that we have right now, right? Back in the day, when we used to sit down and we used to do drafting with pens and pencils and we used to draw, we used to have way more drafts people, right? But ever since we started with Revit, 3D modeling, the amount of drafts people reduced, right? And so that's what you really need to understand. If you understand where loads flow, you can do 2 things. Adapt when the structure changes and see where the load is going to go next and be standing there first. What I want you to do is become this type of person, see where the load is going to go and understand how the industry is shifting, changing, so that you don't end up being someone that gets value engineered out. It's not that you're not valuable, it's that your skills aren't serving the purpose anymore, and it is becoming way more cheaper to get things done right now because of AI compared to what was happening before. And so you want to be on the right path, right? So make sure you understand that whole process, because I'm going to get into pillar 1, which is BIM coordination and management workflows. When everyone thinks about BIM coordination, they think very simply, okay, what is there to do with BIM coordination? If I want to learn BIM coordination, I go on YouTube and I type in Navisworks, I go on YouTube and type in ACC, and I try to learn these things, right? And even a lot of people that apply for BIM coordination positions, they look at the job description and they see all these things and they say, okay, Navisworks, ACC, okay, what does a BIM coordinator do? You might even Google it and it might say that, okay, BIM coordinator federates the model, creates clashes, and then uses these tools like Navisworks and ACC. And then you might think to yourself, okay, this is very simple. Like, I can do this. Why can't I get the job? It doesn't make sense, right? It's because of this illusion. For someone that is over here looking at this iceberg, they think, oh, this is a huge iceberg. But it's pretty manageable. Like, I can actually go and I can learn these things. I can understand how big the iceberg is. But what they don't see is all of this stuff which is underneath. And that's what I'm about to show you right now. There's a bunch of stuff that is kept by people in the industry, right? That you will only ever learn by following people that have been doing this in the real world. And so when people think about the coordination programs, yes, you can learn ACC, you can learn Navisworks, you can learn Revitster, you can learn Celebri, and you can actually use a model and then do all these things. But the way in which they integrate together changes. The BIM management workflows change. And so number 1 skill set is learning these tools, of course. Yes, learn ACC, yeah, learn Navisworks, learn Revitster, learn Celebri. It's not really that challenging, and people are even willing to train you to learn these sorts of tools. What people can't train you is everything that I'm about to show you below, right? The key thing you have to understand is BIM coordination is not as technical as you think. That's the one key thing that actually gets people in the wrong path. The technical aspect of the job is covered in practical decision-making processes. You can't actually watch any tutorials on YouTube and understand how to use the practical, like how the practical decision-making processes integrate with the technical program. You will just learn how to use the tool, right? So there is so many practical changes that will change the workflow we are using. If you have everyone working in Revit, you will just focus on using ACC. What do I mean by that? Over here, we see that the actual way the industry is set out. You have a design phase and then you have a construction phase. In the design phase, you have an architect, you have a structural consultant, you have an MEP consultant over here. What happens in the construction phase? You have the contractor, you have the electrical contractor, the hydraulics contractor, you have the fire contractor. So this design phase might happen for 6 months, or it might go up to 2 years, right? This construction phase, that can go up from 6 months again up to 2 years. So we have distinct zones or distinct phases that we actually run through. And when you're in the design phase, you build the BIM model into a very low LOD, which is level of development, right? And so this low LOD means that you have a functional working model, but it's not 100% there yet, right? It's sort of like the outline of a painting, right? When an artist first does a painting, they don't just start to paint with random things. They might first take a pencil and sketch the outline of how things are. Once they sketch the outline of how things are, it makes sense how it's meant to look. After you do that, then you can go in with your paintbrush and start to paint things and make things look good. And that's when you get the final product. And so what happens in the design phase is the architects, the structural consultants, the MEP consultants will do a Revit model, or they will do a 3D model, and they'll make sure everything works theoretically, right? After they make sure everything works theoretically, what will happen is then we'll come into the construction phase, and in the construction phase, we'll get each of these guys again to develop a Revit model and take their Revit model and then make it even better and increase the level of detail, right, or level of development from LOD 200 to 300 to LOD 400 to 500. So that means that you start to add construction details, like the places that you cut the duct, the hangers that are going to the ceiling and all these things, right? What I'm trying to tell you is, I just had a very, very simplified model right now. Revit is used over here, it's used over here, it's used over here. Every single person is using Revit. But how does the industry really work? This doesn't actually happen all the time. What if people are not working on Revit? What if you have something like this, where the architect is using ArchiCAD, the structural consultant and the MEP consultant is using Revit, but then you might have the mech contractor use Revit, the electrical contractor uses, and the fire contractor uses AutoCAD, and then you have the steel contractor using Tekla. What do you do now? Because you have different people that are working on different modeling programs. You as the BIM coordinator, you shouldn't have any questions about this. You should understand, looking at this setup straight away, what is the optimal workflow that you can use in order to make this perfect and actually get everyone to coordinate very nicely, right? There's a few workflows. When I see this setup straight away, I as a BIM coordinator understand the way that we can set things up in a BIM management sense, right? So if everyone is working on Revit, you will focus on using ACC, because ACC is the same software that is used by, is created by Autodesk, which is now called Forma. Revit is also made by that company, and so everything integrates together very nicely. If everyone is working on ACC, but then you are working on a large scale project, it might be worth to get Navisworks subscription and integrate that with ACC in a way which automates the whole clash detection process. So I've seen companies, I've worked with companies, general contractors, that have 4 BIM coordinators, and they all do clash detection. But I also can do the same amount of work as these 4 BIM coordinators using Navisworks and using a bit of AI workflows, combining them together and being very effective. And so you can actually save, if you're an effective BIM manager and you understand how to actually use the correct workflows and the correct processes together, you can actually, instead of getting 4 people to do the same thing and paying 4 people, you can just get paid more, and then you can use the most effective strategies, and you can be very valuable to the company, because you're saving them so much money, and you're also making them so much money because you're getting paid a specific amount. But then you're making the company so much money because you're not getting 3 or 4 people to be hired in order to do the job that you are currently doing, right? When you don't have teams working in Revit, how do you make sure everyone can see their models, right? That's the next question. So let's just say that everyone is not working in Revit. You have different people working in different things right now, okay? How do you make sure that everyone can see each other's models? How can the Tekla guy see this AutoCAD model? How can the Tekla guy see this Revit model? How can the Revit guy see this AutoCAD 3D model or this Tekla 3D model, right? We might have to use IFC conversions. But when you then use an IFC conversion, which is like a standard file type that we use for 3D models, then how can we actually make sure that we're converting the correct model into the IFC parameters correctly? How do we make sure that we're also converting the coordinate system so that we're not, whenever we try to federate the model and get them both in the same location, maybe the mechanical guy might try to link in the structural guy's IFC model and it might not be lining up. Why is it not lining up? Because the coordinate system hasn't been set up. And so when you're not working with everyone in the same model, like this strategy over here, and you come down to this strategy down here, you have to be able to make sure that even though different people are working in different teams and different models and different softwares, that everyone has a single point of truth and everyone understands how to actually make all their models talk to each other nicely, right? If you don't have many people working on Revit, then you might just work in IFC format. So instead of everyone working in Revit, then we might mandatorily get everyone to convert their files to IFC. And then if you can convert your files to IFC, then everyone might link in their IFC files. But when you do that, you need to make sure the coordinate system lines up really well, right? So you can start to see there are all these questions that start to come up, which starts to show you, okay, we're like here, somewhere here, or somewhere here inside the iceberg. You can start to see that it's more complex. It's not just about creating the clashes on ACC or Navisworks. That's number one. The number one skill set is understanding how to use the coordination tool. But the number two skill set is actually understanding how the industry works and which coordination tool to use. Because this might integrate with this, or you might use this individually, or you might use this individually. And so what do we do? Do we do this individually, that individually, or do we integrate them both together? That's three different coordination workflows right there. And so depending on the cost, depending on how many people are inside the project, depending on who is using ACC, who is not using ACC, we might opt to do something cheaper or something more expensive. And the reason we might do something more expensive is because it might save more money in the coordination aspect later down the line, because we have to do less project management, which I'll talk about in a second, right? And so if you're working off the ACC, how do we make sure that everyone is using the same coordinate system? I talked about that. If you're working on Revit, then how can you make sure the IFC models link together to create the federated model? So you can start to see that there is the second skill set over here is understanding how each of these models actually link together. And after they link together, what is the optimal way to do it? So understand how to actually use the programs. Number two, understand how they potentially could link together. Number three is understanding, so this is about understanding all the different variables or all the different ways they can link together, right? And number three is understanding how to actually make that decision, right? Because there's all the different possible combinations. You might have like 10 combinations of doing things, but then the skill over here is how do you know out of these 10 combinations, which is the correct one, which we're going to use in order to actually, for the BIM workflow. And that's really dependent on understanding the level in which you're at. Like, are you coordinating in the design phase or the construction phase? Are you coordinating? That's what's one variable. And the second variable is if you're coordinating in the design phase, how many people are using Revit? How many people are not using Revit? Okay, if you're coordinating in the construction phase, again, how many people are using Revit? How many people are not using Revit? So 4 variables: design phase or construction phase, right? And Revit users, non-Revit users. Based on those 4 variables, you have the different BIM workflows, which can be different combinations of this, and this, right? And the other variable is cost, depending on how much money the company that you're working for can afford for this and what their budget is, how effective you can actually make this happen. Because not always the expensive, it's not always that the expensive BIM management workflow is the best one. Because sometimes you can use a more cost-effective BIM management workflow, save money, but then get the same outcome, right? So you can start to see, I'm starting to like tell you variables that I actually think about when I'm trying to do this whole BIM coordination process, depending on the phase of project which I'm in, right? So I'll give you an example. Within actually learning the BIM management workflows, because we talked about BIM coordination programs, now we're talking about BIM management workflows, right? We're going deeper down into this iceberg slowly. Hopefully you understand. Number one is understanding the BIM workflows, right? Related to the common data environments. How can they be set up according to the company, stage, and the project lifecycle? That's what I talked to you about. If we have, for example, if you're in the construction phase and you are coming off the back of like the design phase people who have fully coordinated their model, they might have their own cloud. And then you in the construction phase might have your own cloud, but then we might use a function called the Autodesk bridge, right? Which actually bridges both of these clouds together, right? And once you bridge these clouds together, then you actually have to be able to create your federated model that actually has all of the models that are inside here and all of the models inside here in order to create your federated model and then assign clashes to everyone so that they can then go back and then update their federated model and then go through that whole process again and again, right? And so we might bridge it based on two different clouds that we have. The fact you might have not even thought that we had two different clouds, because in the industry, we actually do sometimes have two different clouds because the design phase has a separate cloud to the construction phase. The way that ACC initially was intended to be made was actually that everyone works on one cloud. And that's what universities will teach when you're doing a BIM Masters. That's what you will actually have the impression of when you go and watch videos on YouTube, is that everyone is working on one BIM cloud and all the stakeholders are there, and then we create the federated model. But you can start to see that it gets more trickier than that. It gets more and more niche because we have more and more needs that happen throughout the project, right? Or everyone can actually work in one project or one cloud. And if everyone works in one cloud, we actually might have this process using the shared folder or the working in progress folder. And so this is called version control, right? So you might be able to set up version control, which means that we're not actually linking in everyone's live models. We're linking in a shared model, right? And being able to set that up in a way that you have three versions of the model always live. You have the version that's currently being used and being modeled. Then you have the version that is being shared. And then you have the version that is being consumed. And so it's very complicated. I'm not going to explain it in this video, but just understand at a given point in time, there are always three copies of the same model that are floating around, and you have to set up permission settings so that not everyone sees the three types of models. They might only see two types of models or the one model, which will not get them confused according to the correct workflow which you need to establish. And so version control is another variable. Being able to bridge it because we might have two clouds is another variable, right? And so all I did here was talk to you about the BIM management workflows, because that's very, very important for you to understand based on where you're working inside the construction workflow, right? After that, the next thing is about actually understanding how the flow of data will happen according to the stakeholders in the project. There is no one size fits all. You will have to implement this because based on what I told you before, if we use IFC models, if we're using IFC models, do we have the coordinate system set in place? Who's going to do the coordinate system? So who has the singular point of truth? Are we actually getting everyone to convert into IFC first and then getting those IFC models to be linked in into each of these modeling programs? Or is everyone using Revit, and then we're going to convert it first to IFC, and then you as the BIM modeler, you might convert it into a Revit file so that all the people that are, the 95% of people that are using the Revit workflow will just be able to link in the Revit file, right? Similar to instead of an IFC file, and then it will be able to be more natural for them, right? So depending on the percentage of people that are using Revit versus IFC, these things also change as well. Because I can tell you, if I have one structural guy or one steel guy that is working in Tekla, I'm not going to give the IFC model to each of the BIM modelers. I'm going to take that IFC model, convert it to Revit, put it in the federated model, and then also tell everyone to link it in through that Revit model. And so it's more natural way of linking things in. You can see grid lines, you can see levels. It's easier to link in. You can set up coordinate systems better and it's easier to edit that when you convert it to Revit rather than just getting the IFC model and then dumping it, and then people have to sort of figure out how to link things in and how to align levels and how to federate the model and make sure the coordinate system is set up. Much harder when you have an IFC model that hasn't been set up in the correct way initially, right? So even depending on the proportion, we actually change these things here. And the second thing is we might use IFC, but we might not even use ACC. We might use other programs like Procure or Aconex in order to do the clash detection process because they have their own little clash detection methods of doing things, right? If everyone is not using Revit, then we will just have to link everyone else's IFC models. But at that point, using ACC as a common data environment, the benefit goes away because you're spending money in order to do something that we're not using the maximum capacity and the maximum benefit from. So what do you do then? You might use something like Procure or Aconex that has its own inbuilt BIM coordination, BIM management plugin and tool and you can actually use that to use IFC models and actually get the coordination process to start happening there. And we might start to use something like a BIM Collaborate format, like a BCF format, and do this whole thing, right? You don't have to understand everything that I'm saying in this video. I just want you to know the variables that are possible so that you understand what I mean when I say the iceberg gets deeper and deeper and deeper. This is what you really need to understand. You don't need to understand how to do it. If you want to know how to do it, you can pause this video, take notes, start to go and research into these things individually. And by the time you get through the whole video, create the notes, go and research, you would actually become an expert if you take some time and learn it after this video. But I just want to show you the complexity behind the bottom of the iceberg that not many people understand when they think BIM coordination and BIM management, right? So what is depending on the common data environment is going to change depending on what the phase of the project is, what percentage of people are using Revit. Why do we need to implement a version control system for model data exchange, right? We might implement a version control system, we might not implement a version control system. If we implement version control, right, then the way that we convert things here might be different. If we don't implement version control, the way that we do things over here, the way the data is exchanged throughout the stakeholders in the program, in the whole the construction workflow is different, right? So that's number one, is understanding the BIM workflows. Number two is understanding, once you select the correct BIM workflow, how the data needs to be managed and flow through to each of the subcontractors and each of the people. And now the data has flown, everyone has actually access to all these different models and they can understand it and they can see it because you've facilitated this. You've helped them set things up. They can link in all these other models, they can understand it, they can see it. What happens now? We haven't even started coordinating. But now comes the issue management process, right? The thing after that is understanding the issue management process based on the coordination workflows we are going to be using. So we might be using ACC, the issues plugin. We might be using BCF formats, like I said before. We might be using Navisworks reports like Excel spreadsheets or PDFs. Depending on what we did over here and what we did over here, this is then going to be impacted. And so if you're using, for example, ACC, you might have a situation like this where you're creating clashes, you're assigning them to a particular person over here. You can choose something as assigned to, you can assign it to someone, you can put in a due date over here, and then they can actually change this status from open to closed, right? Or answered or completed. And then you can actually go in and resolve the clashes after that, right? So if you're using ACC, then we would use the issue management process like that. If you're using Navisworks, then we might use a different issue management process. We might have all the clashes shown over here. We might then export these clashes into something like an Excel format or like a PDF format. And then we might send that over here this is an example of like a PDF format where we might have different, like the location of it, what's the description of it, the element ID, which then the BIM modelers can then use to actually locate where each of these clashes are. So then it changes, right? And so you can actually create clashes in a particular way, and then you actually have to manage the clashes in a particular way. If you're using Celebri, and we might, number one, create something called a presentation, which we can then send to other people and then they can actually figure out what to do. Or we might use like a BCF format, which is like, according to the BIM standards, it's the go-to format that you can use in like an open BIM world where you have comments, you have the description, you have the author, you have the status, you have an image, you have the assignee, and then that format can then be plugged into a thing like Revit. And when you plug it into Revit, you'll be able to see what the clash is, where the clash is located. And so each modeler will be able to then open it on Revit and then see all this status, right? So you can actually do this using the cloud with ACC, or if you're using a different workflow like Navisworks or Celebri, you might be using a BCF format over here, which you might plug in, and you'll have to teach each of the Revit modelers, if they don't understand, the optimal way in which to solve clashes and the way in which it's done, right? Because you as the BIM manager, you actually have the intel about all these different things. You should understand the best way in which to sort these things out, solve these things, and implement these things into your company. As you have this knowledge, you have to teach other people. You have to develop these systems, implement these systems. Then you actually have to go and teach all the BIM modelers and any other person inside the company, hey, this is the BIM management workflow that we are using. This is why it's good. This is your expectations. This is when I want you to upload your models by, and this is what the whole process is. I'm going to use this BCF format. I'm going to use this PDF report or the issues management software on ACC, and then At the end of the week on Friday, I'm going to issue a report according to one of these 3 methods, and then you're going to get it, and then you're going to solve the problem, and then you're going to upload either your Navisworks files again, or you're going to publish your model if you're using the second method, or you're just going to upload your files into Dropbox if you're using the third method. So there's so many different variables. That's what I'm trying to teach you over here, is we've sort of gotten to the end of the iceberg down to here, but hopefully you start to understand when people say BIM coordination, it's not just about learning these technical tools, it's about learning the way in which we can actually have this set up in the industry. And that is why BIM managers get paid so much money, is because they actually understand the different ways we can set things up and how to save money for the company depending on the BIM workflow. They understand the needs of the client, the way in which it's currently operating in terms of, are you in the design phase or the construction phase, so where you are in the construction cycle, and the BIM workflows, and they know how to get the BIM workflows integrated into all these things and find the optimal one, right? This is actually what I helped my client David do. So I want you to watch this clip right now.
After the previous call we did, they called me back.
Yeah.
To answer all the questions. You know, like, if you want to go ahead, and I said, yeah, okay, I'll want to go ahead. And then they said, okay, and then they just called me back asking if I could start next Wednesday.
Oh, so you got the job.
What's up, bro? In a week.
That's good.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Portfolio helped a lot. And they,
yeah,
it's a good thing I went through all their modules before.
Yeah, because you had the confidence to, had the confidence. Yeah. Yeah, right, that's good.
So they have like 5 subway stations. They have BIM coordinators for every station.
David got a job on the call, right? That you saw that happen just then. Why was this so exciting for him though? Because he's very special, because he came to me within 2 weeks. We were able to get a BIM coordination job. The reason is because that's a very quick turnaround, right? Starting to work with me and then being able to get a BIM coordination job. What is it that we taught him? He knew a lot of all the other project management, how to position himself. He knew a lot of this stuff, but his bottleneck was actually understanding this particular thing. He had only worked in the design phase as an architect, so he had never understood the different workflows that you can use for IFC, Open BIM, and also if you're working with the general contractors or as a BIM consultant or in the construction phase, the way that we can actually do the setup, the BIM workflows for that. And so he had learned maybe up to here of the iceberg, but he didn't know all of this stuff over here. So when he worked with me, all we did was that. What I told you over here, I told you what it is in this video, but I didn't tell you how to do it. And so what I did with him is I taught him how to do each of these things on a one-on-one setting, where he actually went, he implemented things. I saw it, I explained it based on all the context and all the knowledge which he had right now, because everyone is unique in terms of what they've been exposed to in the industry. And so you sort of got to meet them where they are. And then he was able to get the BIM coordination role, right? When he came to me, he was actually so burnt out in his career. He had traveled for a year just because he wanted to get away from architecture. And his income was capped and he was working overtime. He had so many deadlines as an architect. It caused so much stress for him. This is the reason he was so motivated to get into BIM coordination and BIM management. He'd been doing the same thing for years and starting to lose passion for his career. And he kept asking me, like, I'm not sure if architecture is the right thing for me. I came into this because I felt the passion, but I feel like the passion is slowly gone. I'm not doing my own design. I'm doing a design that a client wants. And I'm also working overtime and I'm not getting paid for the amount of work that I'm working. Is this even the thing that I signed up for? Is what he was thinking. He kept telling me that he's not sure if architecture is genuinely for him, but he didn't know what to do because he felt like he was starting from scratch. And so when we started working on positioning him to get into BIM coordination and BIM management, that's what we did. I taught him everything inside this particular pillar because that's what he was missing, right? What he was missing was not just the knowledge of being able to understand, what he was missing was the knowledge of being able to understand the different workflows, as he had only been exposed to the architectural side of things. And so we just positioned him as someone that had a deeper understanding within this iceberg, which is what actually then allowed companies to be like, okay, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. Because the illusion with this iceberg is, for someone that is trying to get into BIM management, they think that this is all they need. But for someone that has been in the industry, a director or a manager, someone like me that has been working as a BIM coordinator and BIM management workflow, has been implementing those into companies for years, right? I understand the whole skill stack. And so when I see someone's portfolio, I see someone's resume, I see when they speak to me in interviews, I will know straight away how deep they've actually gone. And in their perspective, they think they know everything. But in order to actually understand all these things, you need to know very niche things that I can actually very easily ask you based on everything that I've shown you on this board in order for you to actually understand, right? The illusion is from the top outside perspective. When you actually haven't worked as a BIM manager, this is all you think you have to learn. That's the problem, because no one inside here is telling the people up there, hey, you need to actually, there's all this stuff that you need to learn, go and learn it. And so this is what you actually have to learn, and this is the deep dive in terms of technical skills. Keep in mind, what's the difference between technical and theoretical? All I've done to you so far is explain to you technical skills, not theoretical skills. Theoretical skills is what you probably have up here, like learning ACC, Navisworks, Revit Studio. You can do this on YouTube by yourself. Even if you go to a BIM Masters and do a BIM Masters, you'll probably learn a lot of theoretical skills, but not technical skills, right? Because technical skills are covered. The technical skills that we have to learn down here, the BIM management workflows, are covered in a layer of practical information and practical context, right? Keep that in mind. Practical context is what is required in order to develop this technical skill that you see on the screen right here, right? So that is the sad reality, is that like the iceberg looks like this, but really deep down, you're missing a whole bunch of things. And so that's why we helped with David, and that's why he was able to transition within 14 days very quickly into this BIM management thing, and he was able to regain his sense of passion and purpose in his career, which I'm so happy about. I'm super happy that he was able to actually do that. It makes me so happy to see people actually that have been stuck, that have felt like they've had a big problem in their careers for ages, finally be able to take action and shift in such a quick time frame and solve one of the biggest problems that they have in their life, right? The second pillar, which I want to show you now, because we talked about technical skills. Technical skills, cool. You can learn as a summary the BIM coordination tools, but then you have to learn all these other things that are wrapped in the practical application. What if you learn them, but you are still not good at communicating? Right? What if you learn them, but you're still not good at communicating because you know nothing about the industry? You don't know how project management works. You don't understand about the MEP systems. You don't understand about the construction workflow. Let me tell you an example, right? Just because you have the tools to draw a painting doesn't mean you're good at painting, because you can probably do something like this, but can you do something like this? What is the difference between good art versus bad art is just what's inside here. Your the skill which you have, your vision which you have, your understanding about art, right, is what actually allows you to create something like this instead of something like this. And so I can give you the tools. I can teach you Navisworks, which is like a paintbrush. I can give you a paintbrush. I can teach you ACC, which is like the color, you know, you have like pink or you have like green over here on this palette for painting. And I can give you another even thicker brush over here. I can teach you all these like BIM workflows. So you know, you have like all the tools. You're so good because you have all the tools that are needed. But when it comes to actually painting, if you actually, you have the same tools, but the outcome is different. Why does it look different? Even though you have the identical tools to the person that built this or drew this painting, it's just because what you do with your hands, right? And what you do with your hand is dependent on how you think. Right? How you think, how your brain works, how it operates, how it sees things, how like, for example, in this art, how it sees symmetry, how it sees like the vision of the art, and how you can have an end goal in your mind and you know what you're currently doing is getting towards the end goal. This is honestly something that I would draw. My drawing would look even worse than this, but that's what I'm trying to teach you, right? That's what I'm trying to convey to you, the idea here. It's not just about the tools, it's about actually understanding how to use the tools, right? What I've showed you so far, Pillar 1 is just about tools, right? Tools, but not in a theoretical way, in a practical way, in a technical, right, plus practical tool set. So I've given you a really nice tool set, but now the question is, what do we do with that tool set? You actually have to understand the construction workflow, MEP systems. You need to know site knowledge and project management, because your actual job as the BIM coordinator is to manage the whole virtual construction process and make sure we can have a clash-free model to be built to. What I explained before is the way that we can facilitate that, right? And so let me ask you a series of questions and see if you can understand this. Because imagine, I want you to close your eyes right now. Just imagine that you knew all these skills. You knew the tools, you knew the technical stuff, you knew the practical stuff. You're expert at this. Let me now ask you a series of questions. Pretend you know all that stuff, but let me ask you these questions and you tell me if having that tool set will answer these questions, okay? Question number 1. What if they resolve the clashes and it creates more clashes? What is the solution for that? Okay. What if you have too many clashes to resolve and you can't do it in the timeline of the project? You've been given a deadline, but you can't do it with the tools that you have, right? What if people don't want to resolve their clashes and they do it too late? How do you manage that? What if you don't know how to come to proper solutions for the clashes that we see in the coordination software? That probably didn't sound eloquent, but like, what if you don't know how to come to proper solutions to the clashes that we see in the coordination software? So we see a clash in the coordination software, but you don't even know the solution because you don't know how it looks too complicated, right? What if you legitimately have no solution to some of the issues that you see? Even if sometimes I look at clashes and I'm like, I have no idea how we're going to solve this because it's too complicated. Too many services are clashing with one another. What do we do then? What if you create too many clashes which can be resolved on site, so you're wasting everyone's time? You know how to use ACC, Navisworks, you create all these clashes, but there's too many now. What if you miss the key issues in the model which are not shown in the model, like clearance zones and buildability issues, which are not actually considered clashes? What if ACC and Navisworks shows you have 0 clashes, but when you actually go on site, there's issues? And then they come back to you and they say, hey, why are there issues here? And you say, there's actually nothing in the model. But they say, this is not a problem with clashing. This is a problem with buildability. We can't put this wall across this duct because this wall has no option to attach to the slab because the duct is going parallel to the wall. We can't actually put this access panel in this location because we don't have clearance, right? Because you didn't look at the clearance because it wasn't considered a clash, right? What do we do then? Being able to set up the tool is one thing. Being able to set up the correct workflow is another thing. But when you get to the point where you have to start to do your job, this is pillar 2 is where you actually have to start to do your job, right? Which is to drive everyone towards a clash-free model. When I talk about these questions, if you run into them and you don't know how to solve them, none of the above 2 things matter. Understanding how to do anything in pillar 1 doesn't matter if you actually can't resolve any of these clashes, because this is the practical real world problems that you will face as you actually do your job. So what is the point of these 2 if you can't master this, right? Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to tell you over here is like when you have clashes over here and you're trying to solve them, there is a workflow that you can follow and there are proper decision-making strategies and proper processes that you can follow in order to make sure that everything happens according to a proper timeline, in order to make sure that everything happens and you have solutions. If you can't come to solutions, you need to understand the proper workflow that we can follow, the decision tree that we can go down in order to either lower a ceiling, change a structural element, or change the MEP system, or go back to the MEP designers and get them to design things in a different way. Which one of those paths do you take? There could be like 5 different doors, and depending on which door you go down, the model will look completely different when you build it on site. If you choose to lower a ceiling, you'll have a lower ceiling within a room. But if you choose to, instead of lowering the ceiling, get the designers, the MEP designers, to reroute the way that we're going to run this MEP systems, the ceiling will be higher, but then the MEP systems might be different. And so you might go through this door or that door, and it might lead to a completely different situation on site later down the road, and it might be because of what you said and what your decision process was and what you helped people sort of move towards in the BIM coordination process, right? So it's like this. Let's say you are learning a language. The first thing is you have to learn the words of a language, right? Because now I'm going to teach you all the skills that you need to learn, what you need to stack, the skill stack that you have to learn in order to make sure that you can actually answer all these questions. Because these questions will come up, but you need to learn the stack of skills, right? To actually be able to understand how to answer these questions effectively. Because I can't tell you the answers to this because it actually depends on the project. But I can tell you what I know that will help you make the exact same decision that I make when I do the clashes, right? So the skill number 1 is learning the words of a language, right? Let's just say that you learn what language is. You know that language is stringing words together in order to communicate a specific thing to someone, right? That's the concept of language. That's like what you learned over here, right? The second thing is starting to learn the words of a language. So that means you open the dictionary and you start reading the words inside the dictionary. And then you start to realize, okay, in terms of our situation, right? Like in terms of the BIM management workflows and the construction workflows, you have the mechanical systems, you have the electrical systems, you have the hydraulics, and you have fire. Then you actually go into it and you start to understand, okay, what are the different types of ducts that we can have? What are the different types of units? We have a cassette unit here. We have a fan core unit over here. We have a plant room over here. We seem to have some sort of plinth over here in this location. We have a condenser unit over here. Oh, this seems like an air handling unit. The air handling unit needs to be, it looks like it's on a roof level over here, right? You have duct. What's this piece over here? This seems like it's a piece which is branching off into two duct runs over here. Why is this duct actually a smaller diameter compared to this duct, which is not a diameter, like smaller size compared to this duct, which is a larger size, right? Why is this duct a circle, whereas this duct is a rectangle? Why is this duct sort of going up? Do you see over here, there's a small like thing that goes up, and then there's a different height over here? How can we actually understand all those things? Understanding all those things will give you context in which to communicate effectively inside a meeting, right? After that, electrical. I can do the exact same thing with electrical. You have cable trays, you have lights, you have conduits. And these are not conduits, actually. These are conduits, right? And so depending on the electrical trays, lights, and conduits, and all these things, we can coordinate in different ways. You need to know how to speak the language of these different things. You have, with hydraulics, you have sewer systems, and then you have hot and cold water systems. So pressurized systems as well as gravity-fed systems. These gravity-fed systems, the way that we coordinate is completely different compared to hot and cold water, right? And then in fire, you have fire main pipe, and then you have fire sprinklers, and then you have fire flex pipes, which are going to the sprinklers. And so whenever you see these clashes inside this BIM model, you have to be able to understand straight away, okay, this is mechanical duct, this is blue, so this is supply, right? This is supply. And then this is a diffuser, right? This over here seems to be a sewer system. This is a toilet, right? This over here is another sewer system. This is connecting to maybe like a bathroom or something on the level above. You have more sewer systems over here. You have this red, which is potentially, I think, like some hot and cold water. Oh no, this is actually fire. You have like a red fire system over here. You have another green fire main, which is going over here. You have some blue hot and cold water pipework, which is pressurized over here. You have electrical cable trays over here. Oh, you have some flex duct, which is going underneath over here. That's clashing with some items, but it's fine because flex duct can coordinate on site. So you can start to see that I can actually visualize and understand this. So when I'm leading a meeting and I'm looking through clashes and I'm trying to tell people, okay, this is this clash, this flex duct is clashing with that. There's not enough clearance over here. We need to move this fire main. We need to move the fire sprinkler. They can actually understand and see that I know what I'm talking about. Instead of you actually being like, this blue thing is clashing with this red thing. Can we move the blue thing or do we move the red thing? I've assigned it to, like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem like you know what you're talking about. And so number one is understanding these MEP services to a very good extent so that you can communicate with the same language that they can communicate, right? That's like learning the language, learning the words to a language. Number one is first you have to understand what you are coordinating, okay? After you understand what you are coordinating, the next thing you have to understand is what to coordinate. What's the difference between that? It's a difference between learning the words of a language, right? And then learning how the words can be used together to form a sentence. I can teach you the words like bat, ball, head, cap, but I can't teach you how to actually form them together in a sentence. So that's the next thing that you actually have to learn. So skill 2 is not understanding what you're coordinating. You understand the mechanical systems, electrical systems, hydraulics, and fire. Now you actually have to understand, okay, how can these different elements be situated in different environments? What do I mean by that? Okay, well, you can have a mechanical system clashing with an electrical system inside the ceiling space. This is the ceiling space you can see here. This is the ceiling over here, and then this is underneath the slab. But what about like these other things? What about like if it's clashing within a plant room? Over here, this seems like it's a plant room. And so you have like a fan coil unit, which is on the floor over here. I don't even know if that's possible. Is it possible? Is it not possible, right? We have some duct over here, which is going into a riser, but it seems to be maybe at a lower head height clearance. Is it possible? Is it not possible, right? Because this is not a ceiling. You have some chillers over here. You have some things over here, which is like some clearance, issue over here, because to the side of this chiller you need some space before you actually put these condensers, right? So you need to understand the location in which we actually have each of those elements. So we might have those MEP elements inside the plant room, then we have to coordinate in a particular way, right? Might have those MEP elements inside the ceiling space, and so we might coordinate in a particular way now, right? The same way that I showed you above, we might coordinate with the fans, with the hydraulics, hot and cold water going up. You can see over here that you have some sewer pipe which is going through some mechanical duct. Do we move the duct or do we move the sewer pipe, right? Like that sort of stuff. So we can coordinate within the ceiling space, we can coordinate within the plant room, we can coordinate. What about like elements on the ceiling? What about elements in the, when you look up and you can see, I can see some lights in my room, I can see it's like my heater, my aircon, there's a grill in the ceiling. I can see maybe a fire sprinkler if I was living in an apartment or something like that. I don't have it in my house, but in an apartment, you'd have a fire sprinkler, right? And so how do we coordinate those items? Because this is a diffuser. This is in the ceiling space, but it's also on the RCP. It's on the reflected ceiling plan. You have these sprinklers that also sit on the reflected ceiling plan. What if you have a cable tray which is blocking the way that a place the diffuser has to sit? The air can't actually flow into the room very nicely, right? That's another issue. You have this fan over here, which is then connected to the shower. In the shower, you have a light over here. You can see that light, and it's slightly clashing with this orange thing over here. What's this orange thing? That's actually the exhaust. And so does the exhaust take priority or does the light take priority inside a shower? Who knows? Can we even have a light inside the shower? What if we have a lot of smoke? And when we have not as a lot of smoke, a lot of mist, when the mist goes into the light, is it going to be an issue over there? And so is that possible? Is it not possible? All these are questions about coordinating each of those MEP services, each of these things in different contexts, right? You have it in the ceiling space, you have it in the plant room, you have it in the RCP, right? And you also have penetration coordination. This is actually how, whenever you have each of these elements going through a wall, we can't just make it go through a wall. We actually have to indicate to people on site that we have a cutout. So they actually do a cutout so we can slot the duct in the correct location. And so you can see here that we have a blue cutout over here, we have a blue sleeve over here, we have another one over here and another one over here. We have even for louvers, you know, if you have a louver which is coming on the facade, then you actually have to make sure you have cutouts, because the way that we sometimes bring structural elements to site is that we already have cutouts like this. And so these cutouts, once you bring them to site, you can't change them. And so even understanding how to coordinate that whole process, either in a 2D model over here in a 2D process or a 3D process, how do we do that? What elements need the cutouts? What elements don't need the cutouts, right? And so that is like, first you understand what it is, then you understand the different contexts and the different ways that you can use it. The word hat can be used in different contexts. You can use it in different sentences. And so that's the exact same way that we do over here. You need to understand the different ways that we need to coordinate. And once you do that, you can then create some sort of like coordination checklist, which I help people in my program do. And this coordination checklist is actually going to allow you to make sure that you can actually hit all these coordination elements by the end of this whole thing, right? And so I actually have a video going through this coordination checklist on my YouTube channel. I think I will link it up in the card somewhere. You can watch it after this video. Make sure you finish this video. But it's me going through with one of my clients, helping him develop his own coordination checklist based on the understanding that I've given him with all this BIM coordination workflow. So if you want to actually learn more about this and you want my personal help, you want to be mentored by me, I can teach you all of the things that I've taught you so far. There's a link somewhere down below. You can book a call with me. I'll speak to you personally. I'll figure out what you know currently, what's missing in your knowledge, and how you can actually gain all this skill set so you feel the level of confidence that I feel right now when I'm explaining to you all these different things, right? So after that, skill 3 is to understand when to coordinate. So like being able to respond with the correct sentences when you go to the country, right? So imagine you land at the country and you ask everything about your accommodation to the air hostess or like the pilot, right? You understand the language, but you don't know how to implement your knowledge at the correct time. So you might understand the words, you might understand how to say sentences, but imagine you just memorize a few sentences, but then you go and you don't know at which point do you say the correct things. At which point do you communicate the right things? I'll give you an example, a different example that might be better than actually this language analogy. If you're baking a cake, if you're baking a brownie, if you're baking a cookie, there's so many different ways that we can do it. You can put in for a brownie the egg before the flour. You can put in the water before the flour. I'm not a cooking expert, but you can understand that there's different... there are different, what do you call it? methods or different priorities that you can put, or sequences that you can put specific ingredients before the other ingredients, that's going to impact the final result. If you don't put a specific ingredient until the very end and you don't mix it in properly, then the cookie or the brownie or the cake you're going to get is going to have a different quality or texture. It might not be as good, right? And so you need to understand that. It's one thing to understand language, it's one thing to understand the words, how they're used in sentences, but it's the next thing to understand when to say the correct sentences in the correct moment. So rather than actually trying to do everything all at once, imagine like you had a finite amount of sentences that you said when you went to France, but then as soon as you landed at the airport, you said everything that you were meant to say in the whole holiday to the pilot when you see him in the airport. That doesn't make any sense, right? You wouldn't want to ask the pilot any questions. You would want to ask the questions about going to the accommodation from the different person. And so it's like, you don't want to front load everything. You want to make sure that you understand when you want to specifically say specific things throughout the whole duration of your holiday. Same thing, right? So now you've created the federated model, you've done the whole you understand the clash detection process. So in a meeting, you know that, okay, I'm setting up a meeting. I know that I have to do the plant room coordination, and I know how to actually speak about the fan call units and the air handling units and the clearances that I need. I understand how to do the penetration coordination. I know that fire needs to go through a firebox. I know that mechanical pipework also needs to go through the firebox for the typical apartments. But I also understand that precast and I understand block work needs specific cutouts that we actually have to create the drawings for. And so I'm going to create a federated model with all those things. Cool. But when do you actually do it? That's the question, right? You understand these skills and how things work based on that, but let's just say you have a 25 level building to coordinate. When do you start the coordination? Do you do it all at once at the end of everyone modeling the whole building? Like, do you get everyone to model the whole building first and then do you do it level by level after that? Or, because look at this image, right? This is one of the projects which I did last year. Do you think the whole clash coordination process was done using the overall federated model? If you thought that I did the clash coordination process using a model that looked like this, you are wrong. Because I used a model that was separated out into individual levels. So depending on what is a typical level, right? So you might have a typical level or a non-typical level, right? So a typical level might mean that like levels like 1 to 3 are the same. So we might coordinate level 1 and then we might get each of the BIM modelers to then copy that level into level 2 and level 3. That way we do one shot, coordinate 3 levels all in once. And so we don't have to double up, triple up on solving clashes. So you can see here, the basement, the subcontractor model, right? Then we have ground floor, then we have level 1, we have level 2. Why did I skip level 2 when I went to level 11? Because level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is all identical. And so I got everyone to coordinate level 2, then we copied and pasted up all the way to level 10. And so level 2 to 10 was solved in one go. What would happen is, if you waited for everyone to model all the different levels, right? And then after you modeled all the different levels, you created all the clashes. And when you created all the clashes, what they would have to do is if they solve something on level 2, they would have to do it on level 3, 4, 5. They would have to do it 10 times, which is 10 times the amount of work. It's legitimately 10 times the amount of work. And so because of that, you can actually split things up so that you don't actually end up coming into issues like this. Remember at the very start, I asked you a question of like, what if you have too many clashes to resolve and you can't do it in the timeline of the project? Well, this sort of strategy is what's going to prevent you from running into that sort of issue with the proper BIM management and project management strategy. Is that like, we're actually making sure that we have the proper typical levels, and then we go level 11, level 12, level 10 is also there actually, level 13, level 14, and then level 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 is the same, level 19 is different. Then you have level 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, right? And so we have 30 levels or 25 levels, but we've only coordinated maybe 10 of them because the other 10 are typical. But you can't actually, it's not just about you coordinating the typical levels, it's about you actually getting people to make sure that they've finished their models and they're telling you so that you can run the clash detection. Then you can assign the clashes to the correct person so that it gets assigned before a specific date, so that after this date, that level can be finalized and locked away. And then you tell them to copy their levels all the way up into the other levels so that all of this is now coordinated. So number one, how do you figure out what is typical and what is not typical? Number two, how do you know the date that we actually have to finish coordinating level 2 before we start to give the green light that we can copy this into level 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to level 10, right? All these things is to do with project management, and it's actually to do with the construction timeline. And so what the general contractor has is they have this construction timeline, which actually tells you things like the date the slab is going to be poured, the day that the BIM model, the site team has to be on site and they're going to start roughing in their ductwork, their pipework on site, the day that we need shop drawings issued for construction shop drawings. What happens if they on site pour the slab, but as they pour the slab on level 1 and level 2, you actually haven't done this penetration coordination process? Well, then you're screwed, because no one has given their penetration plans, and they've adhered to the BIM to the construction timeline. They've poured the slab, but there's no cutouts, and so now you have to cut out in the slab positions, and you actually can't cut out some things because it's structural integrity, because you have specific concrete bars and things and steel wires which are going inside the concrete for the structural engineers. And so if you had told them initially, they would have found a way to reinforce it in a separate way, but now you're telling them too late. They can't actually cut out the square in the thing. And so you need to have these penetrations locked away that everyone knows what's going through a structural element before you even go on site it gets poured. And so what happens? According to when we're going to do slab pours, right? We need to have the penetrations coordinated, and it needs to be done. Before we actually do precast panel ordering, right? Before we order the precast panels, we also need to make sure that the precast penetrations have been given in and they've been coordinated by every single person before they're done. How do you know the date for this? Well, you have to make sure that you understand the construction program, so you know when it happens and when you need specific things for. What if there's a specific date according to the construction program to rough in on site? Roughing in just means going on site and starting to install your elements, like on the ceiling or in the ceiling space, right? So before you rough in on site, what happens if you have a specific date to rough in on site, but then none of the duct or the fire sprinklers or anything has been manufactured or made? Well, then that's also hard, because now you have all these trades that are going and putting their elements in on site, but then you haven't been able to put your things on site. Now it's delaying the whole project, right? So do you see how that is also just based on pure project management, understanding timelining? The BIM management side of things is so integrated with the project management side of things that you really need to understand how things happen, right? If we don't know how the whole sequencing process of the project management and the BIM management aspect of things happen, how do we make sure that things get done, right? Because everyone actually relies on the BIM model to go from a LOD 200 to a LOD 400. When you go to LOD 400, it means that you're IFC, issued for construction. There's two things that you can have IFC. IFC can mean like the IFC file type that I showed you I talked about at the start of the video, but it can also mean issued for construction, which means that like they have constructed and manufactured their ductwork, their pipework, and now they're ready to go on site and install that. And so that means that they send it to a duct shop or a pipe shop, and they manufacture pipework and ductwork, and they split it into small components. When I show you up here and I show you these MEP systems, one of the things that you probably didn't realize was over here, you have each of these ducts already cut. So do you see over here, this duct is cut, this duct is cut, this duct is cut. They're all small pieces of duct that have been cut. Once you cut this duct and it's brought on site, if you have to make an adjustment to a duct piece, you actually have to discard this duct. When you discard this duct, you lose money. And so you need to make sure that you can actually coordinate everything in the issued for approval stage, which is over here. And so issued for approval stage is where you do the whole coordination process. You need to make sure that everything is coordinated before we get into an upgrade into IFC stage. And after the IFC stage, if things happen on site, because sometimes the BIM modelers are not 100% accurate, and there's things on site if you're doing especially a renovation project where you've done like a scan to BIM and then like the BIM scan is not 100% accurate, so we missed like one key thing. What happens in between the IFC and the as-built when you're actually on site? How do you resolve models? Sometimes you might have to set up workshops, right? You can't see this. Okay, workshops to actually resolve issues that have been come up as issues on site. You might have to come back to the drawing board and actually facilitate that whole process. The idea I'm trying to tell you is there is a very strong emphasis on project management and construction management related to BIM coordination and BIM management, because everyone actually creates their drawings based on the BIM model. Everyone makes sure and has the confidence that they're clash free and that they can go on site and confidently start to actually get their guys on site to rough in and start to install, because the BIM model has been coordinated. If I sit here and I say the BIM model has been coordinated, everyone goes, okay, cool, yeah. he says it's coordinated, we're going to so confidently go and start to install things. And if things start to clash, then it didn't happen properly. And so it starts costing money later on site because labor is very expensive, right? And so this is where, and I can go into like 4 hours on this, but like this is where clash avoidance versus the clash detection process exists. You have to understand how to do the typical level clash detection very well. The typical area clash detection, because just because you have typical levels, you might also have typical areas, which may be on a lower level, you might have a branch box which we had coordinated. So on an upper level, we might get the BIM modelist to refer to the exact same thing as a typical layout in order to coordinate. So you don't have to talk as much in a BIM coordination meeting, and you can focus that time spending on other things which are more important, right? Learning how to communicate and manage expectations as more like a management side of thing. Learning how to resolve complex issues through workshops. So being able to actually come to, like sometimes I join meetings and I have no idea how I'm going to be able to solve it. This is why I even set up the meeting. And so I get specialists, mechanical guys, electrical guys, hydraulics guys, we all come to the same conclusion at the end and we actually find a solution. There has never been a project that has gone smoothly. Every single project has had hiccups. Every single project has had clashes on site that I've not picked up on. Every single project has had issues that we've had to get into a meeting with multiple smart people, multiple heads in order to actually come to a conclusion very nicely, right? And we've had to really think about it. We've had to have BIM coordination workshops. All of this stuff has had to happen. Not a single project has gone smoothly. And so this is the management skill suite, right? This is what you need to understand in order to actually feel the confidence to be able to do this job properly. Again, this is like the iceberg. Like we're going deep into the iceberg. So now you're starting to see what is ingrained with this whole BIM coordination, BIM management side of things. It's not just about learning Navisworks, not just about learning ACC. This stuff, learning this stuff and feeling the confidence to do this stuff is what will get you the job, what will get you the interview. If you can explain this stuff, it's what will get a hiring manager to go like, okay, this guy has done this. This guy knows what he's talking about. He can easily come and start to do this for the projects that we have in our company, right? And so if you're not getting BIM coordination interviews, this will be the main reason. So now imagine you know all of those things, but there's one more thing. Understand how to make things efficient, because you can do things in an inefficient way, right? You can get things to happen. You can just do it. You might be working 60 hours, 70 hours a week, but you can get the outcome happening. You can follow the construction program. Everyone's making sure that they're doing the clashes on site. There's clashes in the model before they go on site. There's very minimal problems later that are coming back from site to you, but you've spent so much of your time. So what about now? What about, can you actually make things so efficient so that you can work 40 hours, 30 hours, 20 hours on BIM coordination, BIM management, and with the rest of the time you can do more research and grow yourself, right, in your career and help your company implement more and better systems into the company because you have extra time to do that as a BIM manager. Well, that's where this whole process comes in, is clash avoidance versus clash detection. If you can follow a proper process so that you can actually get people doing a proper sequencing approach where we might have this as the ceiling, we might have this as the slab, right? And we might have like hydraulic sewer at high level, then we might have fire, then we have mechanical, then we might have electrical cable trays, we might have medical gases that go underneath fire. If we can get people to agree to this, and after we get people to agree to this, we can create some sort of timeline where hydraulics goes first, then fire goes, then mechanical goes, right? And then you as the BIM manager can actually facilitate this process happening, and then it can happen very nicely. We can actually prevent double clashes from happening. So sometimes what happens is I have to run clash detection in like 7, 8 different rounds, right? You go from clash detection round 1 to clash detection round 2 to clash detection round 3, and you'll see that when you try and solve these clashes, you create more clashes, which you then have to solve here. Then you create more clashes, which you then have to solve here. And so what you can do is, if you can actually do it a proper clash avoidance strategy, which means that you're getting people to model in a particular way that prevent and turn on previous people's models so that you're preventing clashes from happening, and you know how to sequence this in the proper way with the correct dates and actually get people to do this and communicate this in a correct way, then you can actually prevent yourself from having to create 400 clashes in one level, and maybe we only have like 50 clashes in one level. That way you create less clashes. That way they also solve less clashes, but they've done sort of the proactive work at the start. So you need to know how to sort of guide people in order to do that process as well. This will make your process very, very efficient. And so this is the last skill that you can add. It's sort of like you understand a language, but you also know how to use slang, right? Using slang is not 100% needed, but if you can learn how to speak in slang and speak in like it's like how people that are the writers in the law firms, like they go and they write things down, but there's a specific way that you can write things in short form where it's like you're writing with particular things so that words and letters all merge into one so that you can write at the speed at which they're speaking. And so finding a way to make things efficient, but then also get the same outcome is the final skill stack that we can add on top of each other. And all of these things actually stack on top of each other. So if you have just one of these skills, it's not important or it's not like effective. The only reason it's effective is because you've stacked the previous one and the previous one and the previous one, right? Imagine you understand the theoretical way of how to make things efficient, but you don't understand the MEP systems well. Like your MEP system knowledge is very, very bad. When you go into a BIM meeting, you're not going to be able to really communicate properly and speak with conviction and explain to people, get on the same page with them and explain to them how their air handling units might not have clearance or how they might have clearance inside the ceiling space because of their access panels, right? And you have the filter that comes to the back of the air handling unit. You need to open that, so you need some space over here, right? You might not understand how to get on the same page and actually communicate with them regarding those things. And so it's going to actually make it very hard for you to be able to stack this skill on top of this skill on top of this skill, right? And so every skill stacks on top of each other, which is what actually allows you to understand this BIM coordination workflow. Understand what it is that you're looking at, understand the different combinations of the things, right? So you understand how it can happen. Then you understand when to do it, right? Because it's one thing to understand how to do it. Now you're going to understand when to do it. Because if you don't do things in the correct sequence, in the correct order, you'll also not have the correct outcome. Then you understand how to do things in the very efficient way. So you know how to do everything, but you can make it optimized every single time that you do it. So you can save your company time and yourself time. And the efficiency thing also ties into the technical skill set, because if you can learn the best technical skill set up here, then you can actually make it, for example, you can do an ACC integration with Navisworks in order to make things very, very efficient. And you can actually get more typical clashes to be automatically created through ACC and sent to through Navisworks and sent to ACC. These sort of things I teach like a lot of people in the program that work, people that work with me one-on-one. Like for example, Yash. The reason I'm actually bringing up Yash is because he did a construction management masters in the UK. So Yash works in the UK. When he started working with me, he came to me because he wanted to get into BIM coordination and BIM management. I'll play a clip for you to actually watch of him right now.
Finally, I got a job in ArcMC. So they are basically an architectural and BIM construction company, which is placed in London and Philippines, Dubai, Singapore, and Italy as well. So they work on data centers, hospitals, and most commercial stuffs.
Yeah. So you became you got a role as a BIM coordinator in
BIM coordinator. Yeah.
What you'll realize is that Yash had done a construction management masters, but everything that I sort of mentioned over here, which is about construction workflow, MEP knowledge, site knowledge, project management, right, construction management, this is all something that he should have had a very, very deep understanding of, because he's on site regularly. He understands the construction management because he had done the master's degree. He should understand project management because he was actually a project coordinator as he was before he started working with me. But he actually didn't know any of these skills. He didn't know this that well. He didn't know this that well. He didn't know this, and he didn't know this that well. The reason is because this is very technical. The way that we can you actually need to understand how to do the clash avoidance process is very BIM oriented. It's construction management related, but it's more heavy with BIM. And so it's construction management and project management, which has been layered with a bunch of BIM stuff, which is why it's so hard and so niche for you to learn, right? And so he was doing project coordination after his construction management masters, but he didn't have the skill set exposure to be able to get into BIM. So all we did was we worked together to get him up to speed with all the BIM workflows, the MEP, the construction management workflows that I mentioned above. And coming from a project management background and a construction management masters, he still hadn't been exposed to any of the things that I had mentioned because it's so niche, right? The only way that you could learn this stuff is when we actually get it from the industry and you get to shadow someone and you get to see someone actually do this in the real world, which is what we focused on when we worked together. We built a portfolio, we built a CV, and this CV and portfolio, one of the main things I did with him is we made these 4 skills this skill stack, skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, skill 4, everything that I showed you over here, we made them stand out. We made it so that we leveraged the fact that he had a construction management master's, and we leveraged the fact that he had a strong site background as well, like being a project coordinator. And we actually, because he wasn't able to get into BIM management, BIM coordination before he worked with me, because he was applying, but he wasn't able to get there. But we actually then added on top of that this particular skill set with like clash avoidance and clash detection, this particular skill set with understanding the construction workflow and how the BIM management process can happen in relation to that. We created him like a BIM coordination checklist so that he could go and present it to the company, so that when they saw it, they saw everything that he considers when he does his construction management and BIM coordination and BIM management, right? And then I taught him everything about the different MEP systems that come together in order to actually create a federated BIM model, right? And so he actually knew a lot about these MEP systems, but he didn't know much about these things like the BIM coordination checklist, and also like the way in which you can understand how to coordinate, and also like the way clash avoidance and clash detection works, right? And so we added mainly these 3 skills, and that actually positioned him as someone super valuable to the industry, which is what allowed him to get this BIM coordination, BIM management role. He actually had a few offers, but he turned down a few because he said that he didn't want to make a mistake of being in a mediocre company. He wanted to find a company that he felt super valued in, so that he would be able to move towards more passion and freedom and purpose within his career. Now he loves his job, and I'm super happy about that as well, right? And so I'm just bringing this up because construction management masters, you would have thought that you would have learned all these things, but there were a few things that were missing that you can only learn when you actually understand how BIM works, and that needs to be integrated with this, right? And so just pause this video, write notes, and go and research this stuff, because construction management masters, even if you do that, you're still going to be missing the things that Yash was missing, because that's what he did in order to actually get into BIM management, because there are specific things like clash avoidance, clash detection, and also the construction timeline, and how we can actually do the penetration coordination process before the slab is poured, and how to actually manage that whole process that he didn't know, and that I had to teach him, and you would also have to learn that as well, right? The next thing, I don't recommend you do a construction management masters or a BIM masters, by the way, just for the record, because that stuff is good if you're early on in your career, but if you've been working at least for a year or 2 in your career, you shouldn't need a university to endorse your skills. Your practical knowledge and your experience should then be the endorsement to solve problems. Because the reason that degrees and qualifications are so effective is at the very early starting stages of your career, because you don't have experience in which to show people that I can do something valuable. You get the university to say, hey, we endorse this guy because he's gone through our program and he's been able to get good marks. And so you trust the university in order to bet on the person to be able to do the job. But after you've worked for a few years in the industry, companies stop trusting universities and they start trusting experience. And so your experience has to do the talking. The master's is not going to do the talking. I'll explain that in a second. But so far, just to recap, we learned about the coordination workflows. We learned about the BIM coordination programs. We also learned about project management and the way that we can stack things on top of that in order to make the BIM coordination management workflows fly with the project management side of things, in order to smoothly butter and grease this in order to get towards a federated model. What's the next thing? Pillar 3, character traits, communication, leadership, and taking responsibility. Your job as a BIM coordinator is to manage the virtual construction process of the building. This needs to happen with all the technical skills as well as the practical real-world experience I mentioned so far. You can't just do this with emails. This is a very hands-on process where you need to understand who to speak to and what to do and when to do it by, right? Imagine you had someone who knew all the skills I mentioned so far, but they're really bad at communicating and getting their point across and no one wants to work with them. All the other skills are useless at this point. And so I want to introduce to you this concept, which you understand, which you might not internalize, called just the bottleneck of your career. You might be bottlenecking your career without realizing, right? BIM coordination is not a purely technical skill set like Revit modeling and CAD drafting or even architecture and engineering. Hopefully you understand that by now from the 1 hour and 20 minutes that I've been speaking, right? This means that there is a natural stack of skills which need to work together for someone to be able to be successful at the role. If I ask you what ingredients of a brownie are really important, chocolate, butter, eggs, or sugar, you wouldn't actually be able to tell me. You would have a hard time, because the reality is you can't consider something to even be important, right? Unless you can't consider something to be important towards a brownie unless all of these things come together. So if I tell you to remove one of them, you'll be like, no, they're all important. And so I can sit here and teach you BIM the way that it's very foundational and simple for you, but you can probably feel how much practice I have with this. When I explain this, when I talk about my industry experience, when I talk about the knowledge which you need, you know that I've done this before. You know that I've been able to coordinate these projects, and I'm teaching you, right? The same feeling that you feel right now from me, keep this in mind, I'll say it again. The same feeling that you feel right now from me regarding confidence about my skill set, a company needs to feel about you when you apply. So if they don't feel that about you, you will not be able to get the job, right? Really think about that. Because if you're able to get as good at managing and leading as you are with this skill set, actually, I have no idea what I wrote there. So all I'm trying to say is the confidence that you feel right now from me, you need to exude towards your company so that they can actually feel that, and then they will hire you. Because you can have all the BIM coordination knowledge, the BIM management knowledge, the construction workflow, MEP systems, project management, technical depth, but BIM coordination has the word coordination in it. BIM management has the word management in it. A lot of people try to transition from architecture, engineering, or something super technical into coordination and management, and they undercut how much coordination and management skills they actually need. This sort of stuff is actually what can hold you back. Because imagine you're so good at all these technical skills, but you go into the interview and for some reason, you don't get hired, but you have all these skills. Why is that? It's just because you're not good at communicating. You're just not a person that they envision to be the person that is leading the whole construction workflow, the person that is sitting behind the camera, showing their screen and actually critically thinking in order to get to a specific outcome. They need to feel that from you. They can only feel that from you. It's unfortunate, not from your technical skill, but with that in combination with the way you speak and the confidence that you have. And so what might be limiting you is actually your communication, your ability to lead, and your ability to communicate and lead, essentially, right? And so what you need to do is you need to fix the bottleneck, and as soon as you fix the bottleneck, all of this, right? All of this is increasing your width of this bottle. But the width of this bottle is useless because we can't actually get all of this water to increase the flow rate. As soon as we take a scissor and we cut this over here, because your communication becomes better, now this will flow out at a quicker rate, which will allow this water to be drained quicker, which means that you'll be able to use your skills in a quicker manner, right? BIM coordination, BIM management, MEP systems, the technical depth that you develop, the project management, the construction workflow. I've seen people be able to have all of these things, but they are not good at communicating their skill set, and because they're not good at communicating their skill set, they just can't get the job. And so you need to, value delivered is actually a byproduct of this and this. And the thing is, if you multiply anything like 1,000 by 0, you still get 0. But if you multiply like 100, if you multiply 1,000 by 1, you get 1. If you multiply 1,000, right, by 10, right, you get 10. So this is a multiplier, right? This multiplied by this will get you this. This will not get you 10. This will get you 10,000, right? And so this multiplied by this will get you the outcome, but this is a multiplier. So you have to understand how well you can communicate about your value is the extent to which you can actually create the outcome for your life. But the thing is, if you take this and you put this to 0, you will still get a 0. So also technical skill set is important, but I don't want you to really undermine how important it is for you to actually communicate that you can actually do these things really well, right? And it's very rare that someone genuinely knows how to do all these things and they can't communicate well. Because if someone has been working in the industry, they know these things really well, or they've learned it from someone that is working in the industry, to the extent in which they feel so much confidence about it, what ends up happening? They have so much confidence, they know they deserve it. When they go and speak in the interviews, they speak with so much conviction, passion, and purpose that other people feel it. So you don't have to speak the exact same way that I'm speaking right now. in an interview, but you just have to be, because there's different types of managers that get hired all the time. You just have to be able to communicate that you know something so deeply to the point where they feel that, okay, this guy is going to be able to solve the problem, right? And sometimes when you start to stutter about the way that you do things, about if you're good or not for the role, that actually happens when you have bad communication, but the bad communication is actually a symptom of lacking knowledge. And so when you fix this, it sort of fixes this in the long run all the time, right? Because if you think about the scope of a BIM coordinator, they have to take architecture, structure, mechanical, electrical, hydraulics, and fire, create the federated model. Then you have a LOD 300 model. Then you have to work with them as you get into LOD 350. You have to work with them into LOD 400. Then you have to work with them until LOD 500. So each one of these small arrows, it seems very simple because I'm drawing an arrow, but within this, you have a whole BIM management and BIM coordination process that I've just mentioned in the last two pillars. You have your ability to communicate effectively. You have your ability to actually create the proper issues assigned to the correct person. You have the ability to actually create workshops and go through complex clashes. You have the ability to zone things so you can do a clash avoidance instead of clash detection. That is what's happening here, even though this looks very simple, like I drew an arrow. And so this whole process is what happens when this model grows up and it gets in sort of like a LOD 500. It's not, LOD 500 is not construction ready, is after construction. So they've constructed it and it's more of like as-built. So one role is responsible for all of this, making sure that we have the proper grease and the butter to be able to get to the end outcome. Managing the whole virtual construction process, that is the BIM coordinator. And so 6 teams model their own scope. One person makes it all work together. All carries from design to intent to buildable, right? So in order to make this happen, you need to be arguably the person that can communicate the best should be the BIM coordinator over here, because that person is the one that's going to be communicating again with the architect, with the structural engineer, with the mechanical guy, with the electrical guy, with the hydraulics, then coordinating between these guys when there's a workshop, actually solving the issues over here within the workshop, creating a clash avoidance instead of a clash detection process, being proactive with all these things, making the job easier for all these people as well. You realize how much work goes into that. Is more of a proactive and a good communication skill set is needed in order to make that happen. And so the person with the best communication has to be the BIM manager, the BIM coordinator. And so that person that skill set is what a company is looking for when they're trying to hire you and they're trying to look for you. If you go to a BIM coordination interview and you just have this basic skill set, hey, I know ACC, I know Navisworks, people are going to go, okay, cool, but in their mind, this is what they're thinking. The hiring manager is thinking, okay, is he going to be able to do all these things that I just mentioned to you about? Is he going to be able to create the federated model correctly? And then is he going to know how to do the clash avoidance process? Is he going to know how to zone things properly according to the typical levels and non-typical levels? Is he going to do it according to the correct time? Will I have to manage him? Or is he going to be able to proactively create all the clashes for penetration coordination before it's actually poured on site? Or are we going to have issues later on site? Do I have to end up doing more work to teach this guy when I hire him? Or do I think that he can actually do the process by himself and only for key things he will come and ask me? That is the feeling you need to give a company when they're looking to hire you as a BIM manager, right? So there's 2 aspects to this: effective communication and effective leadership. There's 3: effective communication, effective leadership, and taking responsibility. Those are the 3 elements that I've seen working with a lot of people getting into BIM coordination and BIM management you need in order to make it work. But I'll explain, there's one thing which is like the domino effect to knock all of these things out the park, right? So let's think about this. How do you become an effective communicator? To become an effective communicator, you just need to be confident about the topic. If I give you any topic and you just know it so well inside and out, is it going to be hard for you to become an effective communicator, or it's going to be easy? It's probably going to be easy. You'll naturally be able to speak about it. Because I know anyone that is watching this, you right now, you're watching this. I know there are so many topics about your life right now that if I knew you, if I met you and we spoke, there would be so many things that you would be able to speak about with so much conviction, so much passion, right? And if you don't feel like you have a topic, something as simple as your family, right? Your parents, your children. You could speak about them with so much conviction and passion. And when you speak about them, you are effectively communicating to anyone that hears it. And so the skill of effective communication is there. Why is it there? Because you know so much about the topic. Anything about your life. If I ask you to give me a life story about the things that you've done so far in your career, the things that you've done, if you've moved country from one country to another, you've traveled the world and you've experienced these things, you would be able to explain so well about those things. And so the communication skill is there for the topics you know about. And so confidence in the topic is what's going to actually allow you to effectively communicate. But how do you get confidence in the topic? Well, you need the confidence with the skill, because in order to have confidence about a specific topic like ACC, BIM coordination, BIM management, Navisworks, you need to actually understand, you need to have that skill. You need to have done it before, right? And how do you get the skill? You need to have applied it in varying real world scenarios. Like I mentioned before, if you have worked in the design phase and the construction phase, and then you've worked with different stakeholders in the project, you've worked from an LOD 200 model to a LOD 500 model, you've also worked with hospitals, prisons, aged cares, apartment buildings, you've worked across multiple different life cycles of the project, right? You've also made mistakes and you've figured out how to fix those mistakes. You have so many varying scenarios in which the same skill set has been applied. And when you apply it in multiple different scenarios, now you know so well how to actually solve the problem. The reason that you know, for example, your friends, your family so well is because you've had so much exposure with them. When you have so much exposure with them, you understand, according to different scenarios and different stimulus, how they would respond. That's why the people that are closest to you, it's more or less very easy to predict their behavior, because you've seen them behave under different circumstances, stimuli, and input. The same way goes to your skill about ACC and Navisworks. If you have done it in different real world scenarios, you would have been able to, in your mind, have the confidence to predict, okay, based on this input, based on this stimulus, this is how it has happened in the past, this is how we're going to do it in the future. And so that confidence will naturally happen, right? And so let's stop there for a second. So if you can apply it in real world scenarios, then you will be able to take the skill, and then you will have the skill. If you can have the skill, then you can have the confidence about the topic, because you will know how to do the topic, right? Now let's talk about effective leadership. How do you get effective leadership? Well, you need to be able to feel, you need people to be able to feel inspired by you. How do they feel inspired by you? Well, others need to understand that you are the expert or the go-to expert. Okay, that's one level deeper. How do you make sure that people understand you are an expert about the topic? Well, they need to feel that you have the confidence about the topic, because right now it's hard for me to really it's hard for me to really not convey to you that I am passionate about BIM. I understand BIM. I'm passionate about my career. I understand how all these things happen, teaching, communicating, and I know about these things. You can feel the confidence, right? Because you can feel that I am the go-to expert about this, because you feel the confidence about the topic that I'm explaining, right? And so after that, how do you feel that you can get the confidence about the topic? You need to be able to naturally communicate your skills. Like I'm saying, like I might have the confidence about a particular topic, but if I don't know how to communicate that confidence to other people, they're not going to feel it, right? Because confidence is contagious. Confidence is not a metric that you can write down on a CV. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's a metric that people feel from you when they interact with you. And so confidence is not something that you can write on your CV, on your portfolio as a skill that you have. It's something that is felt from one human to another. The only way that can happen is through this stack, right? People need to feel inspired. They need to feel like you are the go-to expert. They need to feel that you are confident about the topic. And for them to feel that you are confident, you need to be able to effectively communicate. Well, doesn't that take you to the effective communication thing over here? So in order to be a good leader, you need to be able to communicate your skills. In order to communicate your skills, you need to be effective at communication. Well, in order to be effective at communication, what did we do? We have to be confident about the topic. We have to be competent with the skill. We have to apply it in various real world scenarios. And what's the last way? How do you really do that? You just have to take action to learn over an extended period of time. Because if you take action to learn a specific topic over a long time horizon, if I give you 1 year now to every day learn about BIM, learn about how it works, deep dive into it, try to the best of your ability to learn it, get exposed to the different ways in which you can operate, everything that I've sort of explained in this video so far, what's going to happen? You are naturally going to ascend up this hierarchy. You're going to be able to apply it into different real world scenarios. Then you're going to get the skill. Then when you get the skill, you're going to have the confidence. Then you're going to be effective at communicating. When you're effective at communicating, you'll be able to communicate it to other people. They'll feel that you have confidence about the topic. They'll feel you are the go-to expert. They'll feel inspired. You will be a good leader, right? And so this is how you can be a good leader or a good manager in your career. It all starts with this red thing down here, which is the root cause. A lot of people would say things like, you have to be effective, you have to be effective leader, you have to be good at communicating, you have to be good at all these vague things, which are just like symptoms. Like if you can come up here and look at the branches over here, we might think that these are the reasons that this tree exists, but this isn't the reason the tree exists. This is an outcome of why the tree exists. The reason the tree exists is because someone planted a seed, and the seed grew all these roots, and it's being fed by all this knowledge or all these roots which are down inside this this thing. And so whenever I try to make videos, I try to explain things with a root cause analysis so that you can actually understand cause and effect. It's very simple. If all you have to do is take action to learn everything that I've talked to you in this whole video, if you want my help with it, you can book a call down below and I can help you, talk to you one-on-one, help you figure out what you're lacking right now and what you need to learn, create a roadmap, create a game plan. I'll show you all my other clients in order to show you the portfolio, the CVs, figure out and analyze your one. We can create a roadmap together and I'll help you become a BIM coordinator, BIM manager by exposing you. The only thing that I do is I expose you to everything that I have inside here. Pillar 1, Pillar 2, Pillar 3, Pillar 4. After this whole exposure period, you will naturally be a good leader and you'll be good at communicating because you've gone through this whole hierarchy. What's the number one reason? It's not because of me. It's because you took a decision one day to take action to learn over an extended period of time, right? And so that's the one thing that I see people that come and work with me in my program are able to do is they take action to learn things and then they're able to gain all this confidence. Your ability to explain something to yourself is the key metric that will determine if you're able to do it to others. Some people go to interviews and they hope they're going to land a job and they'll be able to see how good they are. Some people go to interviews and they think that, oh, this manager is going to know how good I am and then like I deserve the job, I'm willing to work for free even, they say all these things. But they can't even explain to themselves anything about the topic. Like they can't convince themselves they are the expert at BIM, but they're expecting the company to sort of see that like, oh, this guy's good and we'll hire him, right? What makes it so special for you to be able to get that job when there's other people that are so effective at it that the company is going to hire straight away, right? The only reason I'm saying this is because it's very easy to try and trick someone else, but the hardest thing to do is to trick yourself. And so if you ask yourself, if you genuinely feel confident and you internally feel that you know BIM management and you deserve to actually get this role, right? If you don't feel that right now, how can you expect other people to feel that when you go into interviews, right? If you don't actually feel that. And so I want you to take action to develop that confidence that you have within yourself with communication, with leadership. That only happens by learning everything that I've talked about in this video. If you can learn that is what's going to allow you to actually be able to grow really rapidly in your career. Communication and leadership is important, but the foundation for that is this red thing. This red thing is represented by taking responsibility, okay? This is the most important part of the video right now. Taking responsibility. Why is taking responsibility so important? Because I'll tell you a story about my client called Pearl. I'm just going to play the clip right now.
Pearl has been working with me for some time now, and she just messaged me the other day saying that she was able to get a role as, what was the role that you were able to get?
It's a digital delivery coordinator.
A digital delivery coordinator.
Pearl says that she got a role and she got 2 roles and she got 2 interviews and she got 2 jobs, and she said that she chose the correct job out of the 2. And when she explained that to the company, they were so happy that she had decided already the path that she wanted to follow. It was very clear that she was into BIM and she was passionate about it, and this is the path that she wanted to take, right? Before she started working with me, she was doing BIM modeling, CAD drafting, and she's actually she was from the UK and she moved to Australia, and then she started working with me when she moved to Australia. And where she had lost a passion for her career when she moved to Australia because she was doing BIM modeling, CAD modeling, right? She felt like she had become stagnant over the past few years and stuck in a comfort zone. She moved from the UK to Australia. She has a master's degree in BIM, by the way, but she has only been exposed to the tip of the iceberg, right? What I told you up here. All she had been exposed to was this, because the master's degree that she did, she even didn't teach her any of this. She only taught her this. She was actually got referred. She started work with me because she got referred from one of her clients, one of my clients, Arushi, that I also have like an interview with on this YouTube channel. She worked with me. She moved to the UK. And when she moved to the UK, she started working with me. Within like 90 days, she was able to get into like a BIM coordination role. Then Pearl saw that. She went to the same university doing the BIM Masters with her. And then she started working with me and she was able to achieve the same thing, right? She told me she wished that she had learned from She told me that she wished what she had learned from my mentorship was what she wished when she was doing the BIM Masters. And Arushi said the same thing. What they learned, everything that I told you over here, the depth of the iceberg, you just simply don't learn it when you're doing a BIM Masters. They wish that that's what they were learning when they were doing it, but they just weren't, right? After becoming an expert, she got 2 job offers. She explained what she had been learning and how much she knows. The company was so excited to hear that she had taken an effective role at upskilling herself because it shows passion and minimizes risk.
So when I went in for the interview or whatever, the small chat or whatever it was at the office, he said I really like you and all of that, and I would like to take you, although we don't have anything coming up, but I want you to enjoy what you're doing, and you really I want you to prove to me that you really like this. So I want to know whether this is really a good fit for you. So then I told him about the goals that I set, and then he went through it, and then he was very happy that okay, I was just not coming and taking whatever I get. I had something in mind and I had it all written out. So
Yeah.
he was very happy about that as well. So
this is very important for you to understand how risk is minimized in a company. When a company hires you, they don't want to hire you and then they don't want to train you and then see you go. They don't want to hire you and then they don't want you to leave because they're going to invest a bunch of time, money, effort into you to make you learn the processes within the company. And if you leave, it's actually a net negative for them. And so what the best way that managers think about this is they try to find someone that is already on this path, not someone that is only trying to get to this path because of some sort of hype or some sort of just because they want to make more money. And so it's the difference between this and this, right? You can have someone which is waiting to be chosen in order to put their money where their mouth is, or someone that has already put their money where their mouth is, which is already on the path. And so Pearl was already on the path because she had already invested in learning BIM coordination, BIM management, real world projects, and we were able to fix her portfolio and CV to show some real world projects when she worked with me. I gave her access to all these projects that she was able to do BIM coordination, BIM management. I taught her pillar 1, pillar 2 very effectively, and it positioned her into this camp rather than positioning her into this camp, which is she had already walked past a few milestones, and she was walking past a few milestones and she's already walking, and the opportunity just opened for her. And then this one's obvious, let them in, right? The company just opened the door for her to just walk right through. Versus over here, there's some people over here is just applying and waiting and they haven't really taken much of an action. And so in the company's mind, the company's going, okay, well, I mean, we can train them, but I don't know if they're really passionate about it. Is there passion there? Because if they were genuinely passionate about it, wouldn't they have tried to learn it by now and really focused on upskilling themselves and gaining the passion and sorry, if they were genuinely passionate about it, they would be working on it every single day, taking action to learn it, and it would be so obvious looking at the CV and the portfolio that this is what they want to get to, right? Otherwise, it would just look like, okay, you've been a BIM modeler for some time, an architect, an engineer for some time. You want to get into BIM coordination. Why is that? Oh, it's probably because you're burnt out from your architectural career or because you want to make more money. That's not a good enough reason for you to work here. What they want to see is okay, you worked in architecture, you worked in engineering, you didn't like it too much, you maybe want to make more money, but you've been actively trying and pursuing your path into BIM. You've been going to BIM conferences, your CV, your portfolio looks very BIM oriented, you've been taking BIM courses, you've been working on real world practical BIM coordination program exercises and actually learning these skills. And it's very clear when you show your portfolio, when you show your CV, when you show your BIM coordination checklist, that you know something about the industry that must have happened over the span of you taking action and learning over and over again, right? And so this is the most important thing. It's the difference between someone already on the path and someone just opening the door for you versus someone that is just waiting for someone to open the door so that they can just run into the door, right? This will never happen. This will always happen. And so all my clients that are able to succeed do this, and that's what Pearl did. That's why she said when she got the 2 job offers, she said to the company, she said, I want to take this offer because the other offer is not BIM related, like BIM management related, and I want to do BIM management. And BIM management is the path that I want to go down, and I'm so passionate about it because I've invested in myself. I've learnt all these things. You can see my CV, you can see my portfolio. That is the evidence. I don't know how much more I need to say, but that is the evidence. I'm all in. I'm happy to take this job. And then what they're gonna, and they were so happy about that, right? And so then now they're gonna align her in their company as someone that is in that BIM path and that's been able to grow naturally and ascend over the next few years, because they know that this is the thing that she loves to do and she has taken action to do and she's proved it. And so that's the main thing that you need to do, is take responsibility for the direction that you're moving, right? Because let me tell you the difference between two things, right? Think about this. In a plane, you have passengers who pay money to be on the plane. Then you have pilots that get paid to be on the plane. What's the difference? They're both in the same location at the same time. They spend the same amount of time sitting down, but one person gets paid to do it, one person has to pay to do it, right? What's the difference? The difference is just the way that things work in general. The pilot drives the plane. The plane moves because of the pilot, because the pilot has the skill set. The plane makes progress towards a specific goal because of the pilot. The plane is like the company. As the pilot moves and controls, the company also follows and goes in that direction. But what happens is the passengers are just sitting there. They're sort of leeching off. They're not leeching because they paid for it, but if they were in for free, I would say leeching off the pilot's success of being able to drive the plane or the company towards a specific thing, and they're just growing as a result. The thing that a lot of people don't understand is when you think of a company is just like an aggregate of people. So you have like, maybe you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like, let's just do a very simple company, like 6 people, right? This company is full of 6 people. What happens is, if you have 2 people that are very, very skilled and they're naturally always growing and they're always implementing new systems, this company will only grow, because if you take each of these people out, this box disappears. This box no longer is there. Just imagine taking each of these people out until you have a box. Well, the box is no longer there because it's not defining anything within it, right? When these 2 people grow and they grow naturally and they develop new systems for the company, this company also grows and the box becomes bigger because we hire new people, right? And when we hire new people, but the thing is, these people down here are not actually causing the company to grow. They might be working on the company that these people implement. And so taking responsibility is important because you have to position yourself as an asset. These people over here are assets. They're assets because they're naturally growing in their careers. When they naturally grow in their careers, the company also grows as a byproduct. The reason the company grows is because this person grows. There is no such thing as a company that naturally grows. A company only grows because the leaders of the company grow, right? And so these people cause the company to naturally grow. As the company naturally grow, they create SOPs, standard operating procedures, and then they get the people that are sort of training in the company to learn how this works, and then their skill sets develop as a result. That's why if you go in as a Revit modeler or a CAD drafter, they will teach you these technical programs. There will be a manager that teaches you things. There's on the job training and all that stuff. But when you're getting into a management, right, or coordination role, the key thing you got to understand is this is only reserved for people that understand how to grow the company, because it's a high stake job, because the company's life is online here, right? If you get a passenger to get into the cockpit of a plane and try to get him to drive the plane, no one will feel the confidence. The same way, BIM coordination and BIM management is a role that can highly influence the trajectory of a company, its growth, implementing AI systems, and also saving a lot of money for everyone inside the whole construction process. And so you need to have someone and hire someone that is naturally ascending and naturally growing, because that type of personality is the only type of personality that will grow in their career and also cause the company to grow as a byproduct. Hopefully this makes sense to you, because that's why I'm saying taking responsibility is important if you want to get into management and coordination. The strategy that helped you get into a technical level role can help you continue staying in a technical level role, but you need to take action for your own education and your own learning and prove to a company that you're naturally ascending in order for the company to feel lucky enough to have you in their company, because then the company is going to grow as a byproduct because they see you're growing and they're willing to give you the driver's seat inside the plane, right? So that is my client Pearl, and that's everything. So this is pillar 3, is understanding all those things about communication, leadership, taking responsibility, and understanding the key aspect to that is taking action to learn something and getting so good at it that you can explain it to yourself so well, and you have so much internal confidence because you have taken action to learn it over an extended period of time. Once you do that, the next thing is to then position yourself as someone that has been consistently on this path and is a naturally growing asset. We all like assets. We don't like depreciating assets. We want appreciating assets. We like to get gold because it increases in value. We like to invest our money in the stock market because it increases in value. We don't like to get cars too much unless we're super rich, because cars are depreciating assets. So as soon as you spend money on cars, the reason people say it's not a good investment is because you lose money every single year. And so the same thing is with these companies. They're not going to put someone who is a depreciating asset or even a stagnant asset inside the driver's seat of a company, right? Now, let's say you learn all of that, it's still not enough, because there's one more pillar that is the most important pillar out of these four. Imagine you knew everything about BIM coordination and BIM management, and you knew how to communicate effectively. What if you have all these skills? You have the skills that I have, right? But you still don't know how to market and get yourself opportunities, because the way you position yourself is not good, right? The reason I have this YouTube channel, the reason I even started it at the start, was because I thought when people saw my knowledge, my expertise, I would get more opportunities to work on bigger projects. It was for my career. People do things on LinkedIn. I don't like LinkedIn as much. I like YouTube as much because it helps me differentiate myself compared to everyone else. And so it becomes unquestionable what my actual skill set is. I didn't realize that people would want to actually start to work with me and then get the exact same skill set which I have, which is now what is sort of happened. I do BIM coordination and I help people learn the exact same skill set which I have. But at the very start, that opportunity was only given to me because I'm able to communicate, right, my skill set to other people, and things were able to happen. So pillar 4 is your ability to market yourself to get opportunities. The application, networking, finding opportunities that others don't have. But before that, you need to understand this one simple thing about positioning that if you don't understand, you will never be able to get a job. And that is, you want to position yourself as this rather than this, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. When I say this, okay, let's look at this. This is a hamper. Whenever we get a hamper and we give that gift to someone, everyone is so excited, because when you look at this, you can see, okay, you have like a bottle of wine. Okay, I have some crackers. Let me eat the crackers with the wine. Oh, you have some mixed olives over here. Maybe you have like some spaghetti underneath here. So I'm going to make some spaghetti with some olives and some chicken, and then I'm going to get some crackers and have it with the wine. This is going to be like a really nice Friday night treat for me that I can do. So it's not just the food which I actually like, it's the experience that I'm going to get by consuming this food. It's like Friday night, Saturday night after work, I'm going to be able to do this with a loved one, and then I'm going to be able to have a really, really nice time, right? Really nice date night. Over here, okay, let's look at this. This is super good, right? Doritos. Oh, I can get these Doritos, and then I'm gonna invite my friends over. We're gonna have like a dinner where I'm gonna get these Doritos. I'm gonna use the salsa. I'm gonna use the cheese and put it together. Then we're gonna celebrate something, because we have like these celebrations over here. We have some like peanuts that I can also give my friends, and we can have like a really nice like a nighttime event, right? You know, like where my friends come over to my house. So this is selling a nice date night, right? And then this is selling a nice party, right? So I'm not paying I'm not really paying when I look at this. I'm not thinking, oh, I get a wine bottle and I get this and I get that, or I get Doritos. I'm thinking, oh, I get subconsciously in your mind, you think, okay, cool, nice date night, nice party, right? That's what you think. Let's just say that I give you each of these things individually in a shopping bag, and it's not presented in this nice way, right? Let's put all this thing on a table. You're gonna see these Doritos salsa, and you're gonna be like, okay, cool, this is like grocery shopping. Like, I'm gonna be able to make some nice food for myself, and then I'll make some Doritos, and then I'll eat it, right? But whenever you look at this versus whenever you look at this sells the outcome. This sells the items. When you look at these items, you think of, okay, let's have some chips with some Doritos, whatever. Maybe I can use it for something later. But this sells something deeper, which is, okay, this is a gift. Everything is packaged together. Everything is all encompassing. You can use this with that with this. And so all of these things complement each other very nicely. All of these things complement each other very nicely for a specific event, which is a party, for a date night. If you try to give all these individual things separately, then people wouldn't really care over a long enough time. Imagine every single week I gave you each of these items separately for like a month, or like 2 months, 3 months, you wouldn't care. But imagine I gave you this all together in one go, and you looked at it and you saw and you visualized what the outcome was going to be. This is what I need you to do with your career, with the way you're positioning yourself in the market. Whenever, the thing is, this is valuable. This is the problem, right? this is super valuable. This is also super valuable, but as soon as you put this next to this, no one is choosing this, everyone is choosing this. So as soon as you start to apply for a job and you apply like something like this, but then you have someone else that applies with this sort of packaging, they straight away get the job. It's not because you're not valuable, maybe you are valuable, it's just because the perceived likelihood of achievement goes up. Does that make sense? The perceived likelihood of achievement that a company has when they hire you goes up because they're thinking to themselves, okay, the party is going to definitely happen, rather than them having to do 2 extra steps in their mind to visualize that party. This straight away solves the problem. So the perceived likelihood of achieving it goes up because this is tailor-made specifically for the actual party, and it's all coming in one go, right? You don't have to teach it, you don't have to give it anything else. It's all in one go. And so what I want you to understand here is companies will pay for the experience of what you can do for them rather than your actual credentials. Really keep that in mind. Like I'm going to say it again. Companies will pay for the experience of what you can do for them rather than your actual credentials. Let's just say that you go to a company and you say, I have a master's degree in this, I have a master's degree in that, I have done this, I have done that, whatever. But and you just give them a bunch of credentials and you say, I've never worked in the industry, right? If you say that and you say, I've never worked in the industry, they're going to be like, okay, cool. Like, I know you have a bunch of credentials. You've done your PhD and your master's and your degree and everything like that. But like, we're going to hire someone else that has maybe some site experience and some site background, and that is going to be able to do this job easier. Like for example, Wade. Like Wade, over here that I showed you at the very start of the video, like Wade, his background is a site background. He's not an architect, he's not an engineer, he's worked on site and he's become a VDC coordinator for a $3 billion general contractor. Why is that? Because his site background has given people the ability to feel that he is this type of person and he's positioned himself as this type of person. And so that is the core thing that is going to allow people to be like, okay, this guy's way better, right? So I would rather hire someone that's been on site for some time that has all these skills with BIM rather than someone that actually is just straight out of university, hasn't done even a PhD with BIM, but I don't have the perceived likelihood of achievement. Because if you put them both in the exact same scenario, under the exact same conditions, one will ask more questions, one will ask less questions, just because they haven't had the ability to work on real world projects. And so what I'm trying to teach you, and what I'm trying to tell you right now, is focus on packaging yourself and positioning yourself as someone that can solve the problem rather than someone that has the skills. I'll say it again. Don't be someone that has the skills, be someone that can solve the problem. So everything you do has to be optimized to show someone that you can actually solve the problem rather than have the skills. The skills gives you the capacity to solve the problem, which is gonna solve a particular issue for them, which is the experience which they get from you solving the problem is stress-free, right? They don't want to be stressed. So when someone hires you, in their mind, all they're thinking, their decision-making process is hiring this guy gonna make me do less work or make me do more work? If he feels like he has to do more work, he's not going to give you the job. If he feels like he's going to do less work, he's going to hire you on the spot immediately because he doesn't want anyone else to take you into their company, right? So you got to focus on positioning yourself so well that it's going to be like, oh, as soon as you go to the interview, the manager's going to be like, oh, this guy is like, I'm going to have way less headaches. He's going to do so much work over here and I'm going to have to like train him very little, right? That's the feeling they need to get. And so, perceived value of success needs to increase, and that's the only way you can do that, right? Let me actually explain to you something down here, right? Let's look at this example. Over here, you have a haircut. If I know in my program I work with men and women, but I'll just use this as an example for a fade. A lot of men can probably relate to this. When you look at these two things, where would you rather go to get a haircut? Well, initially, straight away looking at this, I would say, okay, this person actually is shown better and is portrayed better in this picture. The person that is cutting this hair probably knows way more about styling and all this stuff, right? Versus this, you can see that you're not really showing the face, you're showing the skill. You're showing the fact that you can fade hair. You can go from no hair down here and you can gradually increase your hair and then it's faded and then, okay, whatever. But to be honest, when I'm looking at this, I'm not seeing I'm not seeing how nice the person looks after the haircut compared to before he looks before the haircut. Like you can see here that maybe the hair over here is nicely faded, but there's like too little hair at the top over here, and they haven't like texturized the hair, which is something that they've done over here. Maybe they've put a little bit more texture on the hair over here. So you can see here that the way that they've done is they've also exaggerated his facial features, or not exaggerated, but made it prominent. You have here his cheekbone, which is shown because you have some lighting. This down lighting is causing some shadows down here. You can see this shadow is what's actually making you think, okay, this guy's, and the hollow cheekbones. You can see some hollow cheekbones here. Why? Because they've done some things with lighting. He's squinting his eyes. This is something that models do most of the time whenever they're doing something, right? And they're looking off into the distance. It looks like he's in like some area. He's wearing something nice as well, right? And he's got like a nice fade. So whenever I look at this, they have optimized to increase the attractiveness of the image, right? They have optimized to showcase the skill of the barber, right? But the thing is, I might not know anything about haircutting, but all I know is, do I want to go to a specific barbershop based on an image? And my answer is, I don't care about what skill you have. I care about how you make me feel after you give me the haircut. So the reason that I want to get a haircut is because I want to feel good. I want to feel confident. I want to feel nice about myself. I want other people to compliment me. And I want to feel kept together. And I want to feel like nice about myself, right? So it increases confidence. Every guy knows that after you get a haircut, you feel more confident. And so when I see this image, I feel the what I want, which is the confidence, this guy has. This guy seems to be confident, looking off into the distance. His facial features have been shown over here to show the increase of attractiveness compared to this guy, where you could probably get this guy over here under better lighting conditions to exaggerate his jawline more. You could have probably made him squint more and look into the distance, focused on his face more as well as the fade. And so the difference over here is you don't just want to showcase your skill, you want to show what the skill represents. When someone cuts my hair, I don't want my hair to be faded nice. I want to feel confident. And so you want to be able to make people feel that they have the outcome from the actual thing that you have. And so from a barber perspective, right? From a barber perspective, I don't know. Maybe this guy, the way that the barber has faded this guy's hair is way better than the way that this guy's hair has been faded. I don't care about that. All I care as a consumer, as someone that wants to choose the person or hire the person to cut my hair, is who seems to cut better models and cares about like understand and create me the perceived outcome better, right? There probably isn't any logical reason why this guy is better than this guy, because maybe the fade is exactly the same. But just from the image, you can understand what I'm trying to tell you is whenever you see this, you think, okay, this guy's nice photo shoot, looks good, the hair looks good, face looks good, everything is nice, right? But over here, you look at this and you think, okay, the fade is nice, but I can't really see the facial. Like, will I feel confident? Like, you look at the fade, but you don't feel anything. You look at a skill, but you don't feel anything. That's what people feel when they look at your CV, your portfolio, right? And so you want to optimize for attractiveness here, because what I pay for when I go for a haircut is to feel attractive and confident, right? You want to optimize over here for companies will pay for the experience of what you can do for them rather than the actual credentials. I don't care about if someone is good at fading hair. I care about if they can make me look something similar to this where I feel confident, because this guy seems to look very confident about how he looks, right? And he looks like a model looking off into the distance. And so that's the same thing we need to do with you in your career. Positioning is so important. And so that's actually why I also want to talk to you about Aarti, because Aarti was a little bit different. She had done this thing where she hadn't worked in the industry. She had done her undergraduate, she had then done her master's, she moved to the UK. And when she started working with me, she had never worked in the industry. I'll play something right now to show you what she actually was able to achieve.
Getting into coordinator role itself is like a big achievement, and it was like a dream come true. I couldn't believe that I will get into it. Right before I joined your course, I didn't have any confidence or any type of achievement goal, anything to like where I'll be in next 1 year or something. I put like a lot of effort and hard work. It's for like a continuous 10 months. I just put every effort I needed for this. So I aimed for it, and I earned for it, and I worked hard for it, and I just earned it.
She went straight from uni undergrad into masters with no experience. So we had to work on positioning her as someone who can solve industry problems, even though naturally it was not showing on her profile. I remember I said before, like, would you take someone like Wade, who has been working in the industry but has no qualification, or Aarti, someone that has just had academic qualification, right? You'd much rather take someone like Wade, who has worked in the industry, because the perceived likelihood of achievement goes up, because it's like this image versus this image. But you have to be very strategic about how you actually position yourself. If you actually, because you can't change your scenario, right? Like if you don't have experience, you don't have experience. And so Aarti was able to become a BIM coordinator in the UK, right? Because we were able to position her CV and her portfolio in a very specific way that positioned her to increase the perceived likelihood of achievement so that she was able to mimic someone that has been working in the industry for decades, right? That's why we had to work so long to make sure she was up to speed with all the BIM workflows I use on a daily basis. And we worked on the portfolio, so we had multiple real-world projects. There are 2 conversion events. One is the portfolio. So we built a portfolio with real-world BIM coordination projects so that she was able to get the interview. And when in the interview, the reason that she gets the interview is because it's not just that she's done an undergraduate and she's done a master's degree. It's because it's got nothing to do with that, because she was applying for like 6 months before she started working with me and she wasn't able to get a job. But after she started working with me, we were able to move towards creating a good portfolio, which is what took some time, with real world projects, which is mimicking real world experience, right? After we mimicked that real world experience, what did we do? That we did conversion event number 2, which is because she had been working with me for so long, she had seen the way that I had done BIM coordination and BIM management. She was then able to then go and speak in interviews as if she has done it herself, because she had actually been guided by me. And so even though she had only academic background and she had no real world experience, she had 0 experience, we were able to position her as someone that has that experience. So we were able to position her with the outcome in mind, so that when companies see her, they feel that she has the outcome, right? The knowledge was so good that she was able to get a BIM coordination job, even though that's not the position she applied for, just based on her knowledge. She actually came to me at some point. She was like, I've been applying for 6 months. I don't care if I even get a BIM modeling position. I'll grow into BIM management slowly. That was actually our initial plan. She started working with me, and then we did this thing where we fixed her CV, we fixed the portfolio, we gave her real world projects, she put it there, and she understood my coordination process so well, coming to the Q&A calls and the one-on-one calls, that when she went to the interview, she got interviewed for a BIM modeling position, but when she got the job offer, she got the BIM management job offer, right? The BIM coordination job offer, she got straight away. So not even the thing that she applied for is what she got. She got the manager looked at her CV, looked at her portfolio, looked at the real world projects, and gave her a better position than what she applied for, because they were in need for a BIM coordinator, but they thought, okay, you clearly have better skills to be a BIM coordinator rather than a BIM modeler, and we will put you into that situation. So that is very important for you to understand, is that like when I think about this whole career thing and I think about positioning, right? You have to position yourself in a very specific way in order to make things work. The thing, what most people do is they think that applying is the most important thing. And so they keep applying. It's the same as putting the same brick over and over again for years and years. But what they don't realize is applying is only one brick. It's the last 2%. And so you can have the illusion of doing hard work by placing the same brick every single day over and over again forever. But you will actually only ever achieve the goal if you stop placing that brick of applying every single day and you take a step back, you realize, hey, I'm actually missing a bunch of skills over here. And you go and every single day you build these other skills, which is all the other bricks which you need. And then the application is just the final piece of the puzzle, which brings everything together and allows you to achieve the goals, right? So positioning is important, skills is important, and application is just the last piece of the puzzle. Application is literally something that should take a couple weeks, a couple months in order for you to get the job, but you have to be very careful, because you can fall into the trap of doing the same amount of work. Applying for 5 hours a day, applying for 3 hours a day takes the same amount of work as learning for 3 hours a day. So if you're going to do something with your time, applying for the same thing is not going to do anything, because if I gave you a visual demonstration of what you were doing, where it's like putting the same brick over and over again, you would stop it immediately, because you'd be like, this is futile. This doesn't actually lead to a specific outcome, right? And so instead of applying for 3 hours a day, imagine you just didn't do that and you started to put bricks over here and develop your skill set, right? After some point, you would be like, okay, let's try applying again when everything is done, and then you would be able to place this last piece of the puzzle, and then everything comes together very nicely. You have to really understand the 2 ways that you can do things, because Gasoline on a flame that is not lit is not going to produce an outcome. This is what a lot of people do when they apply. They keep trying to pour gasoline on a match which has no light on it. And so because of that, gasoline is your life energy. You keep applying, you keep applying, you keep applying, you keep getting rejected, you keep getting rejected. You have to protect your energy and don't waste it, because it's the only thing which will cause you to quit. If you keep applying and you see no result, and the industry keeps saying you're rejected, you're rejected, you're rejected, you start to believe that you are not valuable, probably because you're not valuable, and then you quit, and then you feel like, okay, I'm stuck, I'm stagnant, and then you never take action to learn. But you should only apply after you have so much confidence and conviction in your own skill set. If you have that confidence and conviction, as soon as you start to put this gasoline on this flame, everything's going to start to light up. And you can empty the whole gasoline on the flame as much as possible, and you will just start to naturally grow, and the fire will grow and grow and grow, and it'll be very, very nice, right? And that's how people can get into a positive spiral and momentum and very naturally grow in their careers. When you know that your flame is lit, you have to not be scared to empty all your energy on the flame. But until then, you have to empty your energy, right, on learning the skills, because that is the only thing that's going to allow you to succeed in your career. Because that is like, if you don't have the skills, then your flame is never lit and no one's going to really care. You can try and trick companies into hiring you, but you can never trick yourself, right? If you ask yourself this question, do you genuinely feel that you can provide value, come into the company and restructure the whole way they do BIM management and implement the latest systems and processes so that everyone becomes more efficient? If the answer is no, and you yourself don't feel the confidence, then how can you expect a company to feel the confidence come from you that you don't even have? Right? So really protect your energy and don't do this to yourself. Don't just apply knowing that you don't genuinely have the confidence to actually get the role. Only apply when you know for a fact that you are the type of person that deserves this role because you've worked on yourself and you're on the path that is succeeding. You've already opened 2 or 3 checkpoints and you're walking down that path. Companies can see very clearly, okay, this guy's already on this path. Let's open the door for him or her, right? And so that's the most important thing you can do. I want you to just pay attention to every single testimonial or person that has worked with me. There's way more on my YouTube channel and way more in my program, but I've actually strategically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've mentioned 5 people in a very strategic way. I just want you to realize Wade has no educational background. He has a site background, right? David has an architectural background. Yash has a construction management, right? Construction management. Pearl has a BIM masters. Arthi has no experience. What other thing could you ask for, right? You have people that have site exposure and no architectural engineering background get into BIM coordination, so that's possible. You have people with architecture get into BIM coordination using this framework, so that's possible. People that have construction management and no master's degree in BIM are able to get into it. People that have BIM a master's degree weren't able to get into it, but after working with me, they were able to get into it. People that have no experience, if you position yourself in the correct way at the very end, like I mentioned, just that last pillar, they're also able to get into it. So this system that I have revealed in this video works for so many types of backgrounds. I don't think you can find a single background that this system is not working towards. And that's why I handpicked these people to show you. I want you to feel inspired so that you know that you can do it if you genuinely want to. I don't think you were able to find a single example, right? Engineering, no architecture, masters or no masters, Revit or skills or no Revit skills, BIM accreditation or no BIM accreditation, experience and zero experience. What more can you ask for? Every single one of these people learn the BIM coordination fundamentals, the BIM management fundamentals, learn project management and construction management. Then they learn how to actually communicate their skills so effectively because they were able to communicate it to themselves because they had learned it, so they practiced that. After that, they actually took an initiative to position themselves in the way that actually makes companies want to reach out to them and increases the perceived outcome, which is what they want to experience from you working in their company rather than the skills which you have. You've got to shift the focus. And all of these people were able to do that. And so if you have a background similar to like Wade, David, Yash, Pearl, or Arthi, any one that I explained over here, I have a link down below. You can book a call. You can work with me one-on-one. It's an application-based program. I have to sort of have a conversation with you, see if you're suitable, what knowledge you have right now, what you don't have right now, right? Because there is no one-size-fits-all. It really depends on what you know based on this process and what you don't know. If this is something that you want to take advantage of, because this is not going to last for long. These people were able to get into BIM management and BIM coordination very quickly in their careers, right? They took advantage before the next like couple years goes by, and then more and more people start to get into it. It starts to become more saturated. The people that take action early can stay in the industry longer. They develop more of a base of experience. And when they develop more of a base of experience, they're able to actually showcase to companies later on that, hey, I can become a director, I can become a manager, I can start my own company. And so if you have that vision, you feel like you are that type of person that wants to take responsibility, I would love to talk to you, and I would love to work with you and help you actually achieve this vision. So you can book a call down below. And if not, continue watching my videos. Pause this, take as many notes, watch as many videos as you possibly can on my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.